All right, we will now call the Board of Supervisors meeting for February 28th to order. And first item of business, I need to look to County Council to ask if we have a need for closed session this evening.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there is need for closed session. All items on the agenda will be heard, and I do anticipate an announcement out.
Thank you. Supervisor Vanderpool.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to read a statement regarding a potential conflict of interest, or due to a financial conflict of interest, in closed session regarding agenda item C, real property negotiations with Joe Nunez Silvera and Maria Fatima Silvera, trustees of the 2003 Joe Nunez Silvera and Maria Fatima Silvera Revocable Trust. I have a financial conflict of interest under the Government Code Section 87100 regarding today's closed session item C, regarding a real property negotiation with Joe Nunez Silvera and Maria Fatima Silvera, trustees of the 2003 Joe Nunez Silvera and Maria Fatima Silvera Revocable Trust. I am a part owner of a property management company that manages a number of properties for the Silveras, for which I have received payment in the past. I will not attend the closed session for item C and will not obtain or review any non-public information regarding the governmental decision. The clerk is requested to make this announcement official, an official part of the public record for today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Vanderpool. So we will now convene into closed session, and then after the announcement out, we will reconvene in open session at the Porterville City Council Chambers on 291 North Main Street in Porterville at 6 p.m. this evening. All right, it says it's still 6 o'clock, and so we'll call this meeting of the Tulare County Board of Supervisors, a special session here in Porterville, to order. And we'll start off with a Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence, and the pledge will be led by Vice Chair McCary.
Reach down and make sure our flags. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Well, we're we took a couple of years off from going out into the districts, each of the 5 districts for a night meeting. I know it's really difficult for people to get out at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning and drive to Visalia if you have a job. Typically, it's hard for you to come over. So this year we're reinstituting, and this is the first night meeting that we've had, and the city of Porterville has been gracious enough to allow us to use their chambers this evening. And I'm going to ask Mayor Martha Flores to come up and give us a quick welcome. Hello, Mayor.
Mr. Chairman and respective County of Tulare Board of Supervisors, as the mayor of the city of Porterville, I welcome you this evening in our council chambers as you conduct your business. It pleases me to see members of the local and surrounding areas, in addition to say that as we, both city and county representatives, we continue to work on the various committees that we serve. We strive to make a difference through these collaborations. With that, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Dennis Townsend, Vice Chairman, Supervisor Larry McCary, Supervisors Pete Vanderpool, Amy Shuckley, and Eddie Valero, thank you for your presence in our city.
Thanks, Martha. Is Vice Mayor Carrillo also here tonight? She's not here? Okay. All right, because the next item is I wanted to give a congratulations to the 3 new council members in the city of Porterville that were elected or appointed this year. And I'll have each of them come up. So if we could have council members Don Wyrock come up, Raymond Beltran, and Greg Meister. I think all three are here. Yeah. Let's see. We need to come on. And I've just got a certificate for each one of you. It's County Tulare Board of Supervisors, certificate of recognition. Present to, we'll get your names on there, in honor of your appointment or election to the Porterville City Council. Thank you for your commitment and dedication to represent the residents of Porterville, California. And we really appreciate you all and all the people who serve in any kind of local government especially. There's a big time commitment. And so for these to step up along with the mayor and the vice mayor and previous elections to step up and to serve, it's quite a time commitment. It's life-changing. And all three of these have stepped up. So I have these certificates for you. And sorry, this is for Helen. Congratulations. And this is for you. I knew that. All right, look at all right. All right, and I skipped a very important part, and I will get back to it right now. Our county council didn't give me evil eyes enough to catch it, I guess. But Madam Council, do you have a report out from our closed session?
Yes, Mr. Chair, there is a report out for closed session. Item E, the Board of Supervisors accepted and ratified a settlement offer signed by the opposing party in the case of David Barber v. County of Tulare Workers' Compensation Appeals Board, number ADJ 1712385. The adverse party is David Barber, an individual. This case involves a workers' compensation claim. A motion was made by Supervisor Eddie Valero, seconded by Supervisor Larry McCary, and the motion to approve the settlement passed 5-0. A copy of the settlement agreement may be requested as a public record.
All right, thank you, Madam Council. All right, now we'll come back to item number 3, and that's our Board of Supervisors matters, where we each report out what's been going on, typically the last week and what's coming up, but we were dark last week, so we got a couple of weeks here. And we're going to start right here to my left with Vice Chair McCary.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's great to see such a packed house and everyone's interested in it, and we sure appreciate it. We know ours is during the day, but we still get some people show up, but it's great to see how everyone gets involved. The one thing I want to talk about for my supervisor matters is what I've been dealing with for about the last 2 weeks. You know, we're in 2023, and I've been dealing with some horrific issues at the Woodville and Linnell Farm Labor Centers. I've been working at this for over a month, trying to get playgrounds for the children, and I was going to go to their board meeting on the 15th, and on the 13th I started getting phone calls asking me if I knew what was occurring. I've been touring out there and going around, and it was truly just shocking, the stories I heard, and had to do with illegal evictions, threats of calling immigration, threats of using law enforcement to get people to leave their homes without the eviction process. It was just disgusting, to say the least. At their board meeting, I told them what I had been told, and they looked at me very confused, like a lot of you are looking at me now. And Raina Rodriguez, she's in the back. She and I have been communicating, and she brought some families. And when they started to tell their stories, their board's mouths dropped open. So I can truly think that their board had no knowledge of what's occurring. That has since led to numerous phone calls, numerous meetings, and thank goodness that the board, the Housing Authority Board, has seen what's occurring, and they've put a stop to any further action of this, and they're going to do the right thing. There's still meetings coming up. I got a phone call from a lady at 8:30 last night from Woodville, all concerned, telling me some stories. And you know, being in law enforcement 33 years, yeah, you know there's three sides to every story, but when you talk to people at different times at different places that aren't in the same room and they're telling you a similar story, there's a problem. So that's been what I've spent my last 2 weeks on, and we're going to continue on it. It's going to be a while. But the board, Tulare County Board of Supervisors has no authority over the Tulare County Housing Authority, but those are my constituents, they're our constituents. I know that Supervisor Shuckling went to one meeting, Supervisor Lara went to another meeting, and we're taking this extremely serious. And we're gonna assure that our citizens and our residents in this county are treated fairly, because they are our residents and they're our neighbors. So we need to make sure that all the rules are followed, and we will continue to keep that up. So thank goodness that they've stopped it, and we're trying to do the right thing. But if you know anybody in those locations and they have concerns, they need to keep calling the Housing Authority and blow their phone up with the complaints of what's occurring, because this has to stop. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Vice Chair McCary and Supervisor Valero.
It works. All right. Well, good evening, Tulare County. First and foremost, I do want to say thank you to Supervisor McCary for his leadership on these efforts with the labor camps out at Linnell and Woodville. So appreciate you taking the lead on this with members of the community to find a solution to the problem. First, I want to give an immense level of gratitude to all of our first responders, law enforcement, CAO, and county RMA teams for your around-the-clock work this past weekend. As some of you may know, northern Tulare County was heavily impacted by the rain, and especially in the unincorporated communities of Yedem, Seville, and Sultana. Stone Corral Elementary School, unfortunately, took a big hit and with water in the classrooms, multi-purpose room, and office. The canals were at the brink with water and ready to topple over into the homes. However, our county staff did an amazing job at combating it with sandbags, collective community communication, and support for residents where needed. Again, thank you so much to our county staff for doing that. In addition to being out in the field most of that day on Saturday, I attended the Kauai Health Hospice Foundation event with Supervisor McCary. The day prior, I attended the Young Lives Banquet and the COS groundbreaking for the new facilities at the Tulare campus. Thank you to Supervisor Vanderpool for sharing a few words and presenting a certificate on behalf of the board. Great job on that. Also, just want to highlight Mireya and Maria from CWS for representing the county at the Care Portal Luncheon this past week. They both did a great job discussing how the county has partnered with local agencies, nonprofits, and churches to connect with families in need. This has been a huge impact to our residents all across Tulare County. I left TCAG and our TCAT meeting on Monday a few minutes before it ended to travel to Oakhurst for a Yosemite Sequoia RCDC meeting. And thankfully I caught snow on the way there and back. So it was a beautiful sight, but dangerous too. But I did drive slow. And then today I went to Ivanhoe Elementary as part of the Dr. Seuss Read Across America Week. So I'll be heading there again tomorrow along with the CNG station groundbreaking. And then on Thursday I have a Latino Caucus of California caucus meeting, the ACE hardware ribbon cutting ceremony, the Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks update that I attend every month, and then Wood Lake Awards Night on Friday and the Wood Lake Cleanup Day on Saturday. And that is all I have, Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Valero. Supervisor Shucklian.
There it goes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you said, we've been dark actually the last 2 weeks, so it's been some time since we have met, so I won't go over everything. Two things I do want to highlight, though, over the last few weeks was attendance at the International Ag Expo. Once again, a great show, and I understand it was a record-breaking crowd once again, so that's always a great thing to enjoy. I also want to thank Supervisor McCary for all the hard work that he did with the whole situation with the Linnell and Woodville labor camps. I did attend the community meeting on Saturday night, and let me tell you, that was heartbreaking to hear of folks who have lived there for decades that were given 3 days' notice to leave. A woman with 3 young children was living in her van, and I was there. He asked me to be there since I chaired the homeless task force, and I want to say once again, when people say all homeless people are drug addicts and have mental health issues, when you see what happened there, that's not always the case. People are evicted or treated unfairly, and they end up homeless. So again, I drove the day before that meeting to Fresno for an insurance authority meeting with Supervisor McCary. All the way there and all the way back, he was on the phone contacting folks, whether it was community leaders, HHSA. They had resources there. So again, thank you for your leadership on that. And it was kind of nice that he was on the phone with other people, so I didn't have to talk to him both on the way there and the way back. But nonetheless, so thank you. Thanks, Larry, for that work. Tomorrow I will be attending in Clovis the Agricultural Women's Common Threads lunch that they have every year, where our own Tulare County Farm Bureau Executive Trish Blattler will be honored, so I'm looking forward to that. And then on Thursday, I will have my California State Association of Counties board meeting. I represent our board on that state organization, so that's an all-dayer. So 9 to 3, I will be on the CSAC board meeting. You ready?
You don't have to stall anymore, but no one in
All right.
Porterville told me the Wi-Fi password, so I've not been able to get up my notes, but I'm usually pretty good about knowing my calendar and staying on top of what I'm doing. So I will not bring up and recap all of the events that have taken place over the past few weeks. I always like to look forward, not dwell on the past.
Except when it
I'm
relates
kidding.
to your
I'm
kids'
kidding.
events.
I'm kidding.
Unless
But
it's
it
your
is
kids'
great to be here in Porterville, and this community is near and dear in my heart. And I was actually married in Porterville, this is a very sentimental place. So, anyways, a couple public meetings that I wanted to highlight that are coming up. Supervisor Shucklian mentioned the Common Threads Luncheon. I'm not able to attend due to scheduling conflicts, but I do want to congratulate all of the women who are receiving awards, as well as Tricia Seaver-Blattler from our own Farm Bureau. Really something to be excited about. We've had numerous recipients from Tulare County be honored at this event, and it's really great to see all of the impacts in the world of agriculture that these ladies do have. So pretty significant, and due commendations from all those who know her. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock, there is a LAFCO meeting at the Tulare County Board of Supervisors that I will be attending. Also this week on Saturday, or actually on Friday, I'm meeting with a constituent who is affiliated with a water technology company that purifies water via solar power and different technologies. So looking at ways to possibly deliver clean water to some isolated and rural communities. That's something we're always very concerned about at the county, and making sure that our residents have good, clean, safe water for their consumptions. And then on Saturday evening, I have the privilege of emceeing the VTech Denim and Diamonds event. That is the Visalia Technical Education or Technical Early College event. That's a wonderful event, and they are a charter school that is soliciting applications from students throughout the county, looking at ways to do that. But they offer their students a wonderful opportunity to advance their education early on and to take college classes while they are in high school. There are some really great opportunities there. And the last time I was actually there as the MC was in 2020. And one of the table decorators happened to be a physician, and she decorated the table in March 1 of 2020 as a coronavirus. And then March 17th, our whole world changed for 2 years. So that event was on a hiatus, and here we are now coming back, and look forward to supporting all the great things that they are doing. And then last thing that I wanted to go over, actually, I think that was pretty much it that I wanted to cover this evening. So thank you for the opportunity, and look forward to a very entertaining meeting here in Porterville.
Thank you, Supervisor Vanderpool. All right, and I will report that back on the 9th, I chair the Sustainable Corridors Committee, and that's all 4 of the highways that run through Tulare County, or the 4 major highways, I should say. And we had an update on where the funding is. The Clean California grants actually gave us a couple million extra dollars than what we had already set aside as the Tulare County Association of Governments. And so we have additional screening projects that will be coming up based on the Clean California grants and what TCAG has set aside. And congratulations to Porterville, because they've got the first projects underway right now along 65 and upcoming on 190. So we'll be leading the way there, and then there'll be several others around the county. On the 10th through the 15th, myself and also Supervisor Valero took a trip to Washington, D.C. For the National Association of Counties Legislative Conference. And it's all 2,086 counties in the United States. Supervisors from most of those counties were represented. And I serve as the vice chair of the Public Lands Land Management Steering Committee. And so that was a full day of just talking about public lands, because a little over half of Tulare County is in public lands. And so that was great, and we got to update our legislative platform, and we got to take a visit, Supervisor Valero and I, to Capitol Hill and meet with all of our federal delegation there. Actually, our elected officials were back here because they were at the International Ag Center, and we were not able to attend because we were there for the NACO conference, but their representatives did us really well back there. All of our representatives were very attentive, and so it was a great time back there. Also, just a quick thanks to Speaker McCarthy, because since he wasn't going to be there, he set up a tour of the Capitol and all the way up into the Capitol Dome. So I had the privilege of being able to climb up the stairway all the way to the very top of the Capitol Dome, and take some great pictures up there, see some great historical things. And as an architect, seeing between the old dome and the new dome was absolutely fascinating. If you can ever do it, I would highly recommend it. So thanks to the speaker for setting that up for us. Also was able to meet with the House Natural Resources Committee, and there's some exciting things that are going to be coming out of that committee, I believe, pretty shortly on our forest management. So stay tuned for those things coming out of the federal government. On the 21st, I had a call with our rural county representatives of California. That's the 40 most rural counties in California. And it was a area caucus election. And so we just elected our new representative, which is actually from San Luis Obispo County, who'll be representing this area. And we have RCRC meetings once a month, and it's a very powerful advocacy body when you put those 40 counties together, all talking about the same thing to the state and to the federal government. On the 22nd, I attended our Tulare County Forest Health Task Force, which is also a great group that's been put together of all the agencies that are involved in our forest management and trying to collaborate on what can be done there, projects that we can do. Tulare County now has a master stewardship agreement with the Forest Service, and we have 3 special projects that we're working on right now. On the 23rd, I attended the Government Affairs Committee for the Porterville Chamber of Commerce. The 27th, we all attended Tulare County Association of Governments. Today, I had a really nice meeting with our HHSA directors, Donna, Anita, Karen, and Natalie, and I think they're all right there. And so they all had great reports out of what's going on with HHSA. And later, as we look at our legislative platform, they have added a whole lot of platform items for us based on some of the wild legislation that happens to come out of the state. So responding to that. So thank all of you for that again. Tomorrow I have a Zoom meeting with the governor's external affairs representatives regarding Tulare County priorities. And so I have, it's going to take a long time because we have a lot of priorities to talk to the governor about, but I'm happy for the opportunity. And then, as Supervisor Vanderpool mentioned, I chair the Local Area Formation Commission, Local Agency Formation Commission, LAFCO. And by the way, thank you, Vice Chair McCarry, for taking that the last 2 times while I was out of town on some of these things, so I appreciate that. And then we have our Eastern Tule Groundwater Sustainability Agency right back here on the 2nd. We have been meeting off-site, but we're back in person here at 2 o'clock on the 2nd. And First Friday Coffee by the Chamber featuring Sierra View Medical Center is on the 3rd. And then Monache is having their Athletic Hall of Fame induction at Monache High School, and that is going to be on the 4th. I will be offering the opening prayer and also presenting certificates on behalf of the county. And that is what I have to share this evening. So next on the list, item number 4 is a presentation by Gary Herbst, the CEO of Kauai Health. And we also had on the agenda, it says, and Donna Hefner. That was a mistake on our part. She was not ever going to be able to make it here tonight, although I'm sure they have a lot of the same things they'd like to report, and they talk all the time. But their board meeting is also this evening. So Gary, thank you for coming over, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you, Chairman Townsend, and thank you to the board supervisors. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to give you a report on the state of the nation's, the California's, and local hospitals, the condition that we're in right now, which unfortunately is actually on the verge of financial collapse. As Chairman Townsend said, while we're here in Porterville, and I appreciate having such a large audience here, obviously Kauai's in Visalia, but Donna Hefner is a very good friend of mine and a colleague, and I know that what I'll share with you tonight is every bit as applicable to Sierra View as it is to Kauai. So, not by choice, but over the last 5 months, I've become kind of the face of the hospital industry, at least in California. And it could be because I've been one of the most outspoken and most visible hospital CEOs in the state. And as a result of that, I was enlisted by the California Hospital Association and Carmela Coyle, who is the president of CHA, to get out there and to meet with the California congressional delegation, to meet with all of the state legislators. I also met with the governor's Secretary of Health and Human Services, Dr. Mark Galley, and have met with many, many service clubs throughout the county, other different entities that are very concerned and interested in what's happening in the hospital industry, obviously, most importantly, locally. So I'd like to share with you a presentation that was developed by CHA called California Healthcare in Crisis, Patient Access to Care and Jobs Threatened as Communities Face Grueling Hospital Financial Conditions. So since the arrival of COVID, I think Supervisor Vanderpool said March 17th, 2020, a day that will live in infamy across this country, certainly in Tulare County, is when COVID first arrived to Tulare County. And shortly thereafter, hospitals began experiencing literally billions of dollars in losses. For Kauai Health, just in the month of April, we lost $12 million in a single month, the first time in our 61-year history that we had ever operated in the red. Largely because the governor issued his executive order declaring a state of emergency in California, and he instructed all California hospitals to immediately shut down all elective surgeries, all elective procedures, to make room for the arrival of the COVID patients that we watched on the East Coast and slowly making its way west. Well, the pandemic really didn't arrive from a hospital care standpoint until right after the 4th of July. So our hospital pretty much sat empty in April, May, and June. And elective surgery procedures, that's the financial lifeblood of hospitals. So literally, we were fully staffed, but had very few patients, largely because patients were afraid to come to the hospital. They were afraid to come to the emergency department because that's where you go to contract COVID. So just in a 3-month period, April, May, and June, we lost $35 million, and that's how we ended that year. But now, 3 years, COVID, the third year anniversary of COVID is almost upon us. And I would say for the most part, the severe level of COVID has subsided. I mean, today we had 23 COVID patients in the hospital, a far cry from the 170 that we had in the hospital back in December of 2020. And those 20-something that are in the hospital today are not in critical care. They're not on a ventilator. And probably half of them COVID is a secondary diagnosis. It's not why they're in the hospital. And generally, all are making a full recovery and going home. So the severity of COVID has diminished, but what has been left in the aftermath of COVID is even more devastating. Because what we're experiencing now is really an unprecedented shortage of clinical staff, nurses, LVNs, CNAs. Hundreds of thousands have left the profession since the arrival of COVID. And then compound that with the inflationary pressures that we're feeling. I mean, all of us in this room, we're keenly aware of the high cost of inflation, consumer inflation, but in the healthcare industry, it's exponentially higher. What we pay for pharmaceuticals, supplies, energy, food, pretty much everything that goes into taking care of a patient has just been growing at an incredible pace. As a result, as I said, hospitals are literally on the brink of collapse. Every single day we read about another hospital in this country that is closing services, closing hospitals, laying off thousands of employees, or filing bankruptcy and closing its doors altogether. And it's not just small independent hospitals that are being impacted. Even the very large health systems. Common Spirit, one of the largest nonprofit Catholic healthcare organizations in the country, just posted an unprecedented $1.3 billion loss this last fiscal year. But then you also see small hospitals like Hazel Hawkins Hospital in Hollister, another district hospital like Quia and Sierra View, Beverly Hospital down south, and now Madera Community Hospital, who's been operating for over 50 years, sadly closed its doors back in December, filed bankruptcy, was not able to find a partner to help rescue them, and so now that hospital is shuttered. And then a hospital in Watsonville just recently filed bankruptcy. So there'll be many more that will file bankruptcy and close unless something is done to get hospitals back on their feet. And it's really simple. Costs are too high and revenue is too low. A few slides to share with you. I mentioned the exponential inflationary pressures that hospitals have been feeling, not just since the pandemic arrived, but just looking over that 2-year time period of 2019 to 2021. Here you see labor expenses rose 16%, pharmaceuticals grew by 41% in 2 years, and medical supplies up 19%. I can't wait to see what happened in 2022 because I think it's going to be even worse, particularly on the labor side. So that's the cost side of it. Next slide. I don't think I'm controlling the slide. So when you look across California, roughly 3/4 of the patients that are being taken care of by California hospitals are enrolled in either the Medicare patient population or program, which is for the elderly, 65 and over, or the Medi-Cal population, or the rest of the country calls it Medicaid. We call it Medi-Cal in California. But that is a federal state shared program for the poor, people that are living at or near the federal poverty level. So together, between Medicare and Medi-Cal, that makes up 73% of California hospitals' patients. It's a little higher for Quia Health here in the Central Valley. Unfortunately, Tulare County, with its poverty and socioeconomic challenges, we actually have the highest Medi-Cal enrollment of any county in the state of California. So we rank number 58, or I guess number 1, in terms of Medi-Cal enrollment. Literally 60% of our residents that live in Tulare County are covered by the Medi-Cal program. And in years past, and I have to go back many decades to remember when this was the case, but at one time, the Medicare and Medi-Cal programs actually reimbursed hospitals for the actual cost of providing care. They didn't provide a profit, but at least they covered 100% of your costs. Staffing, supplies, drugs, even your overhead costs. Well, that all changed in 1983 when they adopted what's called the prospective payment system, which then Medicaid and Medi-Cal followed shortly after that. But today, Medi-Cal reimburses us 74 cents on the dollar. So literally, we incur a 26% loss where revenue is short of the expenses for every single Medi-Cal patient that we take care of. It's not much better on the Medicare side. They reimburse 75% of the costs. So we lose 25% on every Medicare patient. So unfortunately, we shift all of that loss to the commercially insured population. And Supervisor Vanderpool and I were just chatting about it shortly before this meeting, and it is a reality that to make up for the losses that hospitals incur on Medicare and Medi-Cal, we look to generally what is about 15 to 20% of our patient population, and they generate not only the profit for a hospital to stay open and to reinvest in equipment and services and facilities, but they also cover the losses that we incur for Medicare and Medi-Cal. It has a term, it's called cost shifting. But what it's doing is just continuing to drive up the cost to our businesses, to our employers, who then turn around and pass that cost along to their employees, our patients, in the term of higher premiums. Next slide. So unfortunately, Kauai Health is not immune to these forces. In fact, I think we're more severely impacted, as is Sierra View, as is Tulare Hospital, as is virtually every hospital in the San Joaquin Valley, because of the socioeconomic challenges that we face. We have high Medicare and Medi-Cal enrollment. We have fewer resources. Certainly our labor, our workforce resources are much more limited in the San Joaquin Valley than they are in other metropolitan areas. So it ends up costing us significantly more to operate in the valley. These were my two most powerful slides that I shared with the different audiences I met with. It's kind of like a before and after. You know, this is who Kauai was, and the next slide is now who Kauai has become. But I wouldn't characterize it that way because we are very much this Kauai Health. It is still a remarkable, incredible hospital, providing outstanding, high-quality, safe care. We are the largest district hospital in the state of California. There are over 400 hospitals. 33 of us, like Sierra View, are organized as public hospitals. So we're owned and operated and governed by the public. We similarly have a publicly elected board that runs the hospital. So we are the largest of those 33 hospitals with 613 beds across multiple campuses. We're the largest employer in all of Tulare County with 5,200 employees. We have more than 700 doctors and nurse practitioners, physician assistants. We have one of the largest emergency rooms in the entire state, 73 beds now. We're a level 3 trauma center, the only trauma center between Fresno and Bakersfield. And while Community Regional Medical Center is a level 1 trauma center with burn and neurosurgery, and Kern Medical Center in Bakersfield is a level 2. I would say if you look at Kauai and the volume and the nature of the trauma that we take care of, we're a level 2 as well. So we see over 1,000 trauma cases every year. We are also one of the few teaching hospitals. You generally think of hospitals that train doctors, generally are large academic medical centers like the UCs. So Kauai is unique in that we're a community hospital. We operate 6 different residency programs. Sierra View, similarly, just started an internal medicine residency program, so we work very closely with them. And then fellowship programs as well. So 130 resident doctors that are working in our hospital right now. As we've been graduating, more than 40% of them decided to stay and live and practice in Tulare County. And not just in Visalia. Many have come to Porterville to practice here. There is an organization called Health Grades that evaluates 4,500 hospitals across the country in terms of the quality and the safety of care they provide, the clinical care. For the first time in our 61-year history, we were named one of the best 100 hospitals in the nation. Only 20 hospitals in the entire state of California out of those 400 ranked in that top 100, and Kauai was one of them. after being named one of the best 250 for the previous 4 years in a row. We also, our cardiac surgery program ranks in the top 50 in the nation out of 1,200 hospitals that perform open heart surgery. We're ranked number 2 in the state of California behind Stanford, who we have just recently entered into an affiliation agreement where Stanford cardiothoracic surgeons will now staff Kauai's cardiac surgery program. And then just recently, U.S. News and World Report named our maternity program one of the highest performing in the nation, delivering over 4,500 babies a year. We contribute more than $1 billion in economic vitality to Tulare County. I mentioned we're the largest employer in Tulare County, and we have been one of the strongest healthcare organizations in the Valley for decades. Most all hospitals their credit worthiness is rated by one of the 3 rating firms. We use Moody's Investor Services. We've been an A-rated hospital for decades. You'll see in a moment that's all changed. We serve more than 600,000 patients, or residents of Tulare and Kings counties. I mentioned we rank number 1 in Medi-Cal. Sadly, because of the socioeconomic challenges that our population faces, we also have some of the poorest health factors in all of the state, ranking 53rd in health outcomes and 56 out of 58 in health factors. And then you can just get a sense of our size. So an outstanding hospital. The Fresno Business Journal once called us the jewel of the valley, to the chagrin of St. Agnes and Community Regional, but we're very proud of that. And it's an outstanding hospital. It means so much to our community, to our county, to our residents and our patients. But here is what the pandemic has done to us. If you turn to the next slide. So since March of 2020 through December of 2022, we have now lost $136 million. And we didn't lose the money, so it's not lost in that sense. It's the shortfall, how much our total operating expenses exceeded the revenue that we collected from Medicare, Medi-Cal, and Anthem Blue Cross and other commercial payers. As a public hospital, we do receive some tax revenue, but it's just a little over $1 million a year on a $900 million annual operating budget. So it literally does not even cover our operating expenses for the first full day of the fiscal year. And then we pretty much turn into like every other hospital, like St. Agnes and Community and Adventist Health, where our entire revenue comes from Medicare, Medi-Cal, and the commercial payers. We did receive, gratefully, $61 million in provider relief funds from the federal government. That was part of the CARES Act appropriation, where they set aside $100 billion to help hospitals, to essentially throw them a lifeline. But unfortunately, because the pandemic hit so hard initially on the East Coast, that by the time it reached California, most all that money was gone. So California hospitals received a very low, disproportionate share compared to hospitals on the East Coast. As a result, we basically have been funding our existence on our cash reserves. We went from, again, that very healthy hospital at having more than 140 what are called days cash on hand. And it basically means how many days could you cover your daily operating expenses before you ran out of cash. It costs almost $2.5 million a day to run Kauai. So we had several $100 million that were in our reserves that we've been using to essentially cover that shortfall, which now has reduced our cash down to 83 days. It actually was at 76 days at January 31st. As a result of that, our credit rating has been downgraded from an A3 to a BA1, which is called non-investment grade, slang for junk bonds. So Kauai has over $218 million in revenue bonds that are outstanding, that are held by investors. We have not defaulted on those bonds. We're still making the principal and interest payments, but we're no longer in compliance with the covenants that we're required to maintain. Two of them, that days cash on hand and another called debt service coverage. which is essentially how many times does your bottom line, your net profit, cover the principal and interest that comes due every year. So at December 31st, we did not meet it. So as a result, we now have to take $17 million of our cash reserves and put it in a trust account that is managed now by a trustee. It cannot be used by QUIA to fund operations. It can only be used in the event that QUIA fails to make those principal and interest payments on that debt. So that just further exacerbates our cash position. As a result, we sent out a request for proposal to over 50 banks to secure a line of credit and potentially a letter of credit, so we didn't have to put that $17 million aside. We could instead have a letter of credit in place. All 50 of them were highly interested. They would love to have QUIA as a client until the Moody's downgrade was announced. Then they all fled, and not a single one of them wants to offer us a line or a letter of credit. So we have developed, a plan to help us recover from this financial condition. We will not continue to exist if it continues going in that same direction. We will just become another one of those headlines. And so we've had to do some very gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching things. The first one is we started laying off employees. We've already laid off 130 employees. We will lay off probably another 90 to 100 by the end of March. We have closed services. We have a 22-bed skilled nursing unit on Court Street that is full most of the time, but it is so poorly reimbursed by the Medicare and Medi-Cal programs that it loses $2 million a year. I will tell you, one of the most gut-wrenching, heartbreaking things I've ever had to do is stand in front of 50 nurses, LVNs, certified nursing assistants, and tell them that we are closing this facility and you're all being laid off. As you would imagine, they all started crying, but they weren't crying because they were losing their jobs. They were crying before their patients. These were family members to them, and we were now going to have to find places to put all of them. Then we closed our outpatient neurosurgery clinic, which was largely Medi-Cal patients that would come from all over, Kern County, Kings County, Fresno County. Could you imagine if you're a Medi-Cal patient and you actually can see a USC neurosurgeon for your back pain? They had that access. Nowhere else in the San Joaquin Valley could a Medi-Cal patient have that access. But as you would imagine, given what we're paid by Medi-Cal, we were losing $1 million a year, and so we had to close it. Similarly, we closed our diabetes education clinic, despite having one of the highest prevalences of diabetes in the nation here. And then lastly, we have never limited the amount of surgery that we will provide to Medi-Cal patients. So a Medi-Cal patient that has a torn rotator cuff or needs their knee replaced, or we've never turned them away, and we've operated it at a significant loss. Many hospitals, most hospitals, restrict the number of elective surgeries they'll provide to the Medi-Cal patient population, but we've never done that until now. We can no longer afford to subsidize those losses because of the state's underfunding. The last thing we've done is we cut the pay for all of our leaders, our directors, all of our executives took pay cuts of 10 to 20%. And for the second time now in the pandemic, we are not going to make a match to our employees' 401k plans. So that's our current condition. You're all aware of the seismic requirements, which we've been planning right after the Northridge earthquake back in 1994. We actually set out to develop plans to completely replace the QUIA Health Medical Center in downtown Visalia. Half of our beds are in non-compliant space and cannot be used for acute inpatient care past January 1, 2030. And so prior to the pandemic, we've, getting close to, starting to move on executing those plans. But the pandemic has brought all of that to a screeching halt. Number one, we don't have any money. And the cost of building a replacement tower is estimated at $730 million. It's estimated that for all California hospitals to come into compliance, it will cost $150 billion. And 40% of California hospitals are not in compliance. Sierra View and Tulare Hospital both have non-compliant buildings that they need to address. And there's not a penny of federal or state funding that is available to help hospitals here. The other thing that has us very concerned is there's now a legislative proposal being put forth by the state assembly to set a minimum hourly wage of $25 an hour for all healthcare workers, no matter what position you're in. Well, a nurse is already making well over $50 an hour, but a housekeeper, a dietary worker, someone that works in the laundry, all incredibly valuable, important parts of our health system, and we couldn't provide patient care without them. But we could not afford to raise the pay to $25 an hour. Again, with zero funding coming from the state, funded entirely from us. My last slides here, and I really want, this is just give you a sense, probably the single biggest factor that's caused this condition across the entire nation is what we're having to pay now for nurses. So over the course of the pandemic, we literally have had to spend $95 million contracting with staffing agencies for nurses. Right today, I have 105 bedside nurses that today I'm only paying $125 an hour for them. Just a few months ago, it was over $200 an hour. Again, no funding from the Medicare or the Medi-Cal program. In addition to that, my own nurses, I'd much rather pay, if you'll skip next slide, I'd much rather pay my own nurses, if they would be willing to work an extra shift because I'm short-handed, than to use a traveler nurse. And fortunately, that number is starting to come down as nurses are starting to come back. But just in a one-year period, we paid our own nurses $16 million if they would work a fourth shift during the week, if they'd work that fifth shift. And we're incredibly grateful, but again, without any funding, just being entirely funded using our cash reserves. Overtime as well, next slide. That's starting to come down, but you can see we're spending $1 million a month in overtime. At one time, we literally had 240 traveler nurses at the bedside. So to be down to 105 has saved us millions, and to drop the rate from over 200 to 125 has been an incredible blessing. But we've already been crippled. That's the problem. And so we are exploring all possible ideas of not going the way of Madera Community Hospital. I think our road to recovery and all those difficult decisions that we've had to make we're starting to see some improvement. How we started the fiscal year, same as your fiscal year starts on July 1. In July, we lost $8 million. In August, we lost another $8 million. In September, we lost $12 million. We lost $28 million in the first 3 months of the year. Fortunately, it's been coming down. We only lost $2.5 million in December and January. But our year-to-date loss now stands at $37 million. We can't continue, obviously, down that path, which I hope brings me to my last slide. You might be hoping I'm on my last slide. You can skip this one. So what do we do? First of all, I want to express my appreciation to the Board of Supervisors. I think you all joined me in sending a letter to the governor pleading for financial assistance on behalf of both QUIA and all California hospitals. So definitely, I'd encourage everybody in this room, the Board of Supervisors, reach out to your state and federal representatives. You can go on the QUIA Health website, and there's a letter there that is very easy for you to send on behalf of California hospitals asking for help. The California Hospital Association right now is pleading with the governor to put $1.5 billion as a line item in the fiscal year 24 budget, a one-time rescue, a one-time financial lifeline to California hospitals that would be dispersed in proportion to your Medi-Cal population. So it would really benefit the hospitals of Tulare County. In addition, we need desperate transformation of the Medi-Cal program. Hospitals have not received an increase in our inpatient reimbursement rates from Medi-Cal for 14 years. On the outpatient side, it's been 30 years since we saw any increase. I was sitting next to Donna Hefner at a recent meeting, and she was talking about their physical therapy program. They lose $1 million a year providing physical therapy to their patients. Usually physical therapy is one of your most profitable lines of business, but they have a heavy Medi-Cal population. She said they get paid $12 per session by the Medi-Cal program for providing physical therapy. And that's the case across all Medi-Cal outpatient services. So we also need relief. We need exemptions and extensions to the seismic requirements. So that's what I'm asking at the state and federal level. But I would also make a plea to you as the supervisors of our county, as the leaders of our county, to consider other options. One is a potential sales tax initiative. That there is room. Unfortunately, there's not room in Porterville. The city is already at the maximum 9.25%, but there is room in Visalia and I believe the city of Tulare to potentially pass a healthcare sales tax measure, similar to what Alameda Health did back in 2004. They had a half-cent sales tax measure to help support their hospitals and other healthcare agencies. They raise $100 million a year through that sales tax measure that helps support healthcare in Alameda County. That's something I'd like you to consider. I don't know if you have any ARPA funds left or CARES Act funds. I know counties and cities and states received a share of those funds. Other counties have provided that support to their hospitals. And I also want to, again, thank all of you and Jason and his staff for all the support we did receive from the county throughout the pandemic. It was a tremendous partnership and collaboration, and I'm grateful for that. One other thing we're considering, general obligation bonds don't go over real well, particularly when they're property-based tax measures, because it tends to be really concentrated in, the about 25% of the property owners that have the highest value. In a lot of counties, they've done a parcel tax where they still raise tax revenue, but every single parcel pays the exact same amount. So you're not harmed if you happen to own a lot of property, and so I guess many folks think it's a little bit more equitable. So, and the last thing you can do, and everybody in this room could do, is support your local hospitals. When you need that hip replacement, when you need shoulder surgery, whatever it happens to be, look to your hospital, look to Sierra View, look to Quia Health, look to Tulare Adventist Health, because your business, helps generate revenue and helps cover those costs and continues to allow hospitals to remain a vital and important part of our community. So thank you for giving me a tremendous amount of time, probably well more than what you had anticipated, but I didn't see any hook come up or anything. So yeah, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Gary, thank you for coming and presenting that. It's sobering, but it's something that we've been talking about, we've been hearing about in other areas, and we've been hearing what's happening here as well. So that it helps us to have the facts, and so we can advocate on your behalf. Supervisor Vanderpool.
Gary, I just want to say thank you for that thorough
Yes.
presentation. Really, it's you carried a torch for three institutions that are all experiencing the same thing. We do not want any of those three to become the next Madera Hospital. That is something that's so terrifying for this county, this community. As we continue to rebound from COVID and we grow economically, what is one thing that every national business or outside business that's looking to move a location to Tulare County, what is one thing they are looking for? They're looking at healthcare, they're looking at education, and they're looking at a safe place and a reasonable supply of a skilled workforce to meet their needs. You take away the healthcare, the ability of this local economy, this local jurisdiction to provide health care to any national employer, we're really going to be hurting in a big way. So Tulare County has come a long way over the time that I've lived here, and I would hate to see that progress stalled. So if there's anything that we can do to help, I'm happy to do so. I know that I continue to advocate and have spoken with numerous legislators specifically about the upgrading or the bringing current the Medi-Cal reimbursement rate, which hasn't been touched in 14 years, and I think that would be a significant gain if we could get the state to do just that. I would be open to exploring further the possibility of a sales tax or a parcel tax, just so that we can make sure that we're maintaining what is so critical to the people that live in Tulare County, being able to obtain their care close to home well into the future. So please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know how we can assist. Thank you again for coming here today and singing a song that needs to be sung. I don't think that enough of our public is aware of the real difficult situation that all hospitals are enduring. So very grateful and appreciate your time and wish you safe travels back home.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you. Vice Chairman Curry.
Gary, I'd like to echo what Supervisor Venable said. You and I have had many discussions on this. We actually got you connected with this, Senator Grove, had a little committee going. I hope that's continuing on the state side. And,
Yes.
you know, you got an audience with like, my understanding, like 15 legislators, bipartisan, that they're seeing it. And if anybody doesn't believe it's going to happen, look at Madera. They went from getting a loan to being shut down in a very short period of time. Supervisor Vanderpool, Secretary, and I sit on the San Joaquin Valley Insurance Authority. Right now, there's some hospitals in Fresno not accepting a particular insurance because they can't reach an agreement because they're raising their rates so high because they're trying to recoup their losses. So it's impacting all of us, and we see it here. There's a lot of people that went up there for specialty surgeries, and I know they say local, but they did, and they're not getting services because they just canceled everybody. So it is impacting us locally as we speak, and we really need to take this to heart. So if there's anything we can do, again, I'll reach out in any way. And I'd like to, I think we have it on our last year's platform. I don't know if we do or not, about Medi-Cal reimbursement. I know it's on this year's. Is it on last year's, Jason?
I believe it's been on for several years.
I thought so, yeah. And I'd like to make sure that we, as a board, write a letter of support on that platform item, if we can do that.
Thanks, Vice Chair. Supervisor Valero.
All right. Hello. Oh, yeah. So just again, thank you for your laser-like focus on the needs for Kauai Health, but also looking into the future and the challenges that are being faced as a result of this hardship. A question that I have for you: have you already felt the effects of the Madera closure, and what would happen if another nearby hospital closes? How would that impact Kauai Health locally?
Yeah, I would, definitely the Fresno hospitals have felt the impact of Madera's closure much more than us. In fact, Community Regional Medical Center, with the support of the County of Fresno, the county actually declared a state of emergency for Fresno County after Madera closed, because Community Regional Medical Center was literally bursting at the seams, running 120-something% occupancy every day, holding 75 to 100 patients in the emergency department because they didn't have a bed open. We've taken transfers from Madera County and from Fresno County to provide some relief to them. But if Sierra View were to close, if Tulare Adventist were to close, or Hanford, or Kauai, if Kauai was to close, and you hear the term often, too big to fail, that's not true. If we were to close, it would have a horrendous impact. It would have a ripple effect that would reach far beyond the boundaries of Tulare County. Fresno County would feel it. Kern County would feel it. You think about it, over the last 3 years, I mean, even while the pandemic has subsided, we're still running 90 to 95% occupancy every day. This morning we had 42 patients holding in the ED waiting for a bed to open up. And so it's not like we're an empty hospital that you wouldn't feel if we closed. Where would all those patients go? And we're not allowed to ever go on diversion. So even when the hospital's full and people continue to show up at the emergency department, we cannot send them away. We have to accept them. And then we'll start putting them in hallways and in chairs, and it's a terrible experience. Certainly, you know, we had our share of that throughout the most severe times of the pandemic, but Supervisor Valero, it would have an enormous impact.
Thank you. And I'm here on this dais to say I also look forward to ways in which we can help from the county side in terms of making sure we really look at this issue, and hopefully we find some resolution soon.
Thank you. Supervisor Shucklian.
I have a comment and a couple of questions, Gary. First of all, having been a 17-year employee of Kauai Health, I still say Delta, but Kauai Health.
The Kauai family.
You know what you say about the folks who work there, the folks at Court Street who cried, not for their jobs but for their patients. I truly believe that. There are some incredible employees at Kauai Health. A really good one left about 6 years ago, but nonetheless, you still have a lot of good ones left. So have you done any studies as far as how much the sales tax or a parcel tax would bring in? You mentioned Alameda. Obviously, that's a much larger area.
Right.
Has there been any?
Yeah, I think a back of the napkin.
Yeah.
Thumbnail look at it. If the entire county, including Porterville, could participate in the sales tax, I think we estimated about $60 million a year.
Okay.
But we really have just been talking
Sure.
conceptually at this point.
And then with the Medi-Cal reimbursements, is that across the board statewide? That's the amount that's reimbursed from the state?
Yeah, it depends. Generally on the outpatient side, so there are so many Medi-Cal managed care plans now.
Right.
So in Tulare County, there's two plans,
HealthNet,
Anthem Blue Cross and HealthNet. So the roughly 250,000 Medi-Cal beneficiaries that live in Tulare County are generally enrolled in one of those two plans. And it's somewhat of a negotiated process with them, like you're negotiating rates with a commercial plan, except for the most part, they simply give you the state's fee schedules.
Right.
So particularly on the outpatient side, you get paid the state fee schedule. You might be able to negotiate a little bit better on the inpatient side, but we lose $8 million a year on the outpatient service for the Medi-Cal population. And if we were just paid the same what we get paid by Medicare on the outpatient side, it would increase Kauai's annual revenues by $30 million. There's that much disparity on the outpatient side.
And the reason I ask is because I sit on our CSAC board of directors, which I mentioned recently, and if this is something that's happening in counties throughout California, it may be something that we could advocate for also on that plane. So that's why I ask.
I mean, I don't know how Hoag Hospital in Newport Beach is doing. They might be the exception.
Sure.
But I talk to CEOs up and down the state, and our story, again, might be a little bit more extreme because of the unique
Right. Demographics,
population.
yeah.
But every hospital, large systems, independent hospitals are really in a dire situation right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gary.
Right, thank you.
Well, Gary, thanks again for coming, taking your time to share this with us. And, you can see that you're going to have support of the Board of
Appreciate that,
Supervisors, going down the road. And I know when I have the call tomorrow with the Governor's External Affairs team, I'm going to bring it up. So
Well, I liked when you said, what are the county's priorities?
that's one of the ones.
I hope this is one of them.
It'll be
So,
on the list, yeah.
Thank you again. I greatly appreciate your time and your support. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Take care. All right, our next item on the agenda is public comments. The public comment time is just for items that are not on the agenda. So if you'll see toward the end of the agenda, there's 41, 42, 43. Those will all have public comments with them. So if you're here to speak on behalf of any of those, this would not be the time. You'd wait for that one. But if it's anything else that's not on the agenda, we'd encourage you to, do we have cards, Mel, or?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a Daniel Iniguez?
Okay, Daniel Inigas, and as you're making your way up, yeah, there he is. I'll just say, yeah, so there'll be a 3-minute limit for each one of the public comments, and thank you for coming and sharing. If you need a comment card, you can come right up here to the front and ask for one, or it sounds like we got them in the back too. Okay, in the back. Pilar standing up back there. Okay, Mr. Negus.
Mr. Chair, board members, my name is Daniel Inigas, and I am a regional director for Global Medical Response that operates Reach Air Medical. Tonight, me and the program director, Danny Gorson, who's from this community, raised in this community, worked in healthcare in this community for a long time. We're excited to announce our intentions to open up a helicopter air base in Porterville, California, with a go-live date as early as April 2023. So just next month. Our intentions is to operate an Airbus H-125, commonly known as an A-Star, which will be located at the Porterville Municipal Airport. Our staffing model is going to consist of flight pilots, flight nurses, flight paramedics, and an aircraft maintenance technician crew. Our mission profile is to offer 24/7, 365 medical coverage for adult, pediatrics, and neonatal intensive care. Who we are, Reach has been operating since 1987. Our headquarters currently is located in Sacramento, California, but Reach is based nationally and made up of a diverse workforce with over 900 employees operating just over 50 medical air bases across 7 states, located in California, Oregon, Nevada, Colorado, Wyoming, Alaska, and Hawaii. Our mission statement is, in every situation, do what is right for the patient. Reach is part of Global Medical Response, which is the world's largest ground and air transportation with over 39,000 employees. Some of our notable achievements are commission on air medical transport accreditation continuously since 1997. We've been awarded the Association of Air Medical Services Program of the Year in multiple years, and we are the contracted FEMA air provider for the nation. So we're really excited. It is a really big deal when we open up a new base, and we're very excited to soon be a part of this community. We're excited to work with the first responders in this community that we do, and all the communities that we serve, with our hospital partners, with our city leaders. So this is just our intention. You'll see some of our leases come through your offices. You'll start meeting with us. Excuse the hat. I just wanted you to see the brand. So when you see our vehicles around town and our proud medical crews with their gear on, and soon to be a really sweet red helicopter in your airs, that's us. So again, what we do, we provide emergency medical services, interfacility transports to our hospital, or whether it 911 scene calls. We are that critical care air transport that we feel is needed in this area.
Very good. Well, thank you for coming and sharing that with us. We'll be looking forward to hearing more from you. All right. Madam Clerk, do we? Pardon?
Yes, we have
Give us a ride up the mountain.
Brian Thorburn.
Not in an
Brian.
emergency basis.
Good evening, Chairman Townsend and board members. I'm Brian Thoburn with Southern California Edison. I just wanted to briefly be here tonight to thank the county for the continuing partnership that we enjoy between the county and Edison during storms. I mean, we're all glad to see the rain and the snow, but it will cause outages, and we did respond to a few over the weekend. But again, I wanted to express my appreciation to your first responders and to all the county departments that are involved. It's a seamless partnership, and it helps us in restoration efforts. I also want to express my thanks to Mayor Flores and the City Council for the City of Porterville's continuing partnership in terms of the storm response here. So, but again, I want to thank all our local government partners everywhere throughout our service territory up here for the great partnership that we have. So just wanted to thank you all.
Thank you, Brian. We appreciate your outreach and all the work that you do. And that switch that says Springville on it, just leave that one on, okay, through the next storms.
We do our best. That's regardless where the switch is at.
Okay, all right. Yeah, wherever that is. Thank you, Brian. All right, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chair, at this time, I have no other comment cards.
All right, is there anyone else wishing to speak in public comment time on an item not on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we will close the public comments, and we'll come back to our next item, which is the consent calendar, items 6 through 40. These items are normally approved by one motion, and before the action, I will ask if anyone wants to have any of these removed from the consent calendar for separate consideration, and then we will hear them separately. So, do any of the supervisors have any to remove for separate consideration? Anyone from the audience have anything they'd like to remove for separate consideration? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I would move approval of the consent calendar.
Okay,
You can give it to Supervisor Valero. if you'd
okay,
like, Mr. Chair.
moved by Sheckley and seconded by Valero. And Madam Clerk, if you could do a roll call.
Supervisor McCary?
Aye.
Supervisor Vanderpool?
Aye.
Supervisor Sheklian?
Aye.
Supervisor Valero?
Aye.
Supervisor Townsend?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. So that takes us to item number 41. For this item, we will be providing Spanish interpretation, and so we can have our interpreter ready for that. Is she here? I thought I saw her here. Okay, let me do it this way. Is there anyone that needs Spanish interpretation for this next item? Can somebody say that in Spanish?
Hay personas aquí que necesitan interpretación, servicios para el próximo ítem en cita.
Okay, I don't see any. So shall we just continue? Okay. All right, and so this is a request from the Resource Management Agency, and we're going to have Aaron Bach will be our presenter.
Chairman Townsend, Supervisors, Council, CAO, and Clerk. I am Aaron Bach, Assistant Director with the Resource Management Agency. And before you today is a project that involves the Matheny Tract, one of our largest legacy communities in Tulare County at 187 acres and with 1,140 people. It is located along in between Pratt Road and I Street, 1/2 mile south of Page Avenue 216, and adjacent to the city of Tulare. The city boundary at this time lies directly north of this community. Matheny Tract is a severely disadvantaged community with incomes less than half of the California median household income. There are 287 parcels with 350 plus homes and around 10 businesses, commercial uses throughout the community, all on existing septic systems with known failures and some findings for bacterial agents consistent with failing septic systems. Many parcels have been subdivided below the original quarter-acre sizes and have multiple units on the properties with insufficient room for additional septic. There is a history here through LAFCO and the state to provide water and sewer services through the city of Tulare to Matheny Tract as one of the first water constellation cases in California. In 2014, the water distribution system was substantially completed, and we received a planning grant at the time to evaluate alternatives for sewer connections. And in 2016, the city of Tulare accepted Matheny Tract as water custom effort. This report tonight completes the process for what began in 2014 and updates the original alternative feasibility plans that were completed in 2017. In 2017, the alternatives plan showed the preferred path of disposal along Page Avenue, but having to be consistent with the city's general plan required a larger line in Page, since one already exists, so they couldn't add another two. At additional cost to the city above what the grant would cover for sizing our line. The city, not wanting to pay the interest on the loan at the time, was not able to resolve their concerns, and therefore the project did not move forward. Leadership Council, as we began working on the Transformative Climate Change Grant in 2020, went back to the city with Mike Washam at the podium and Mayor Segala at the time and its council members directed city staff to assist the county as the lead in renewing the project and finding solutions to address some of their concerns brought about with the city's previous preferred alternative. So the request today is to file a financial assistance application with the State Water Board for $22.8 million in project costs. We are also looking to approve a mitigated negative declaration that was tiered off the 2 existing environmental impact reports that were previously done for this project. We are also updating our technical memorandum that was completed by Provost and Pritchard in December. The preferred alternative this time in our updated plan is for a force main that would be dedicated solely serving the Matheny tract. This would run along in parallel with the existing city facilities and a new easement to be acquired on the north side of Page Avenue. The design and construction of this preferred alternative, design and construction, is $22.8 million. Another difference this time around, that instead of self-connection or abandonment, the CWSRF, the State Water Revolving Fund Financial Assistance Program, can provide 100% grants to these future connections, up to $125,000 per connection for septic to sewer projects. It is anticipated nearly all the residents will be supportive of this and connect to the city's wastewater collection system, yielding a funding limit of nearly $36 million. At least 2/3 of the community will need to connect to reach the funding needed for the project. Alternatively, the State Water Resources Control Board may approve on a special basis a higher connection grant amount in case we don't hit that 3/4 number. Currently, rates are $54 a month for monthly rates at the city. And the city, that'll help the city to pay the estimated annual operation and maintenance costs of $185,000. So why would these citizens want to convert to the city sewer system? 1, the state's paying for it. 2, currently it's about $300 to pump versus a $54 a month service. $10,000 to replace a failing system, that is without accounting for inflation. And they may not be able to put a new system in because of our local agency management plan, which limits the size of parcels. There are unimproved lots out there that may require a variance under the local agency management program to receive a new septic at costs above $20,000 for engineering and improvements. If they can meet them, as LAMP requires 12,500 minimum square feet with an existing water system. So some of those parcels have been subdivided so low that they probably couldn't even meet that 12,500 square foot standard anymore. In addition, we have other county subdivisions that have been annexed or served by other cities, and we subsidize them almost in every case. It's been a 3-year effort to get back to where we are at now, and I'd like to thank Josh McDonald and his team at the City of Tulare, Ross, Sandra, and Denise for attending the meetings faithfully and reviewing documents and just staying involved. I'd like to thank Self-Help for its management of the process and Leadership Council for continued support of the community, and especially the state for attending all of our meetings as well. But we still have a long ways to go. The plans and specifications are estimated to take 18 to 24 months, and construction is to be completed 36 to 48 months after the design is complete. So we still got a long ways to go, but we're in it all the way. So with that, I would respectfully appreciate your approval of this project.
Thank you, Aaron, for that report. And do we have any comments? Yes, Supervisor.
Question I
Redford.
have is the amount that is going to be put forth in this application going to cover the cost of construction potentially 5 to 7 years from now?
That's we did put a contingency in there, and they will be able to adjust at some later date,
Okay.
at least in our conversations. But inflation is so high at this time, I think it does account for that.
Okay, great. And I'll just make a quick comment. I just want to say thank you to the City of Tulare as well, because there's a reason that sewer was not part of the project scope or part of the goal several years back when we were able to connect the community of Matheny Tract to water. It's because the city did not have the desire at that time to move forward. But now they have seen the track record of the residents in Matheny Tract on the water side and their paying tendency. And actually, I did speak with the finance director in the city of Tulare a while back, and she indicated that the paying rate of Matheny Tract residents was actually better than the entire city at large for water at that time. So I anticipate sewer will be the same. It's a public health and safety item, and as we know, we've seen in many legacy communities throughout the county, it is so much more expensive to install this infrastructure after the fact versus having it installed when the community is first created way back when. So very unfortunate that it is a huge price tag on this. However, that doesn't substitute the need to get this done for the public health and safety reasons and the betterment of the community and the infrastructure that will come along with it. So very supportive of this, and thanks for the detailed presentation here.
Thank you, Supervisor Vanderpool. Others? Yes, Supervisor Valero.
Right. First, I do want to thank the community for continuing to be persistent on this matter. I know that is a long time coming, and just again, thank you to the community that has really continued to push this forward. One thing that I just want to share, and it's the frustration, even though I know the relationship with the state is great in terms of the funding that's coming in, but how long it takes to get things done. I know that in East Arosi, with the consolidation process, 2018 is when the conversations first started, and it feels like we're still in the same in the same spot. However, I hope that as we continue to build these relationships with these projects, with the state, that we continue to really highlight the need and the swiftness in these projects, because people out there are suffering. They're having to go on with poor infrastructure in their respective communities. And so, again, I just really hope that we can push the state in recognizing, yes, the great need, but also the manner in which these projects are taking place and the timeline. So my hope is that we can see a timeline that looks a little bit more promising in the future.
Thank you, Supervisor Valero. Others? No? Okay. This is a public hearing as well. So we have it's not a public hearing? This is not a public hearing.
Just
Okay,
a
regular item. We have received some public comment in writing in support of this. So with that, we'll bring it back to,
If we can take any public comments?
we'll take public comments. Okay. We'll take public comments. Here you go. Thank you. Come right on up. Just give your name for the record, please.
Elvia Olea. Good evening, Board of Supervisors and County staff. On behalf of Leadership Council and residents of Matheny, we submit this comment in support of the signing of the Matheny Tract Financial Assistance application. Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability works alongside residents of the most disadvantaged communities in California, San Joaquin Valley, and Coachella Valley to advocate for sound policies and eradicate injustices, to secure access to opportunity regardless of wealth, race, income, or place. Matheny Tract is one of the many communities in the county in desperate need of water infrastructure projects. Residents in Matheny Tract have worked for more than a decade to have access to reliable wastewater sewer in their community. As such, we are here today to ask the Board of Supervisors for the approval of the financial assistance application for the financial agreement for the State Water Board for the project planning, design, and construction of Matheny wastewater project. The community's interest in the city's commitment for wastewater project was first documented in 2010 as described in the Tulare LAFCO Resolution 10/015. 6 years later, Tulare Resource Management Agency adopted and certified the Matheny Tract wastewater project feasibility report in 2016. The infrastructure needs and community support are also well documented in the Disadvantaged Communities Infrastructure Planning Policy Study and Matheny Tract Legacy Plan in 2017, and the Matheny Tract Climate Adaptation Plan in 2022. Matheny's wastewater needs are also included in the county's infrastructure development priority metrics. Moreover, the county's 5th Housing Element Action Program 9 documents of county's commitment to work on infrastructure projects in disadvantaged community, including Matheny Tract, in a timely manner. In December of 2022, residents once again reiterated their support, commitment, and urgency for the Matheny wastewater project during door-to-door outreach conducted by our team. It is evident through the county's various public and planning process, the Matheny Track wastewater project is critical for the community and the county's well-being. Thus, we ask the county to authorize the signing of the planning application package, and we urge the supervisors to direct staff to submit the application in its entirety in an urgent manner, including the needed environmental and financial package. Moreover, the county staff should consider implementing the Housing Element Program 9.4 to communicate to residents current project status, next steps, and strict timelines to complete the project. The county's need for wastewater infrastructure and long-awaited transportation projects are dependent on staff's prioritization of this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else like to have comment on this particular item? Yes, if you could just state your name for the record.
Hello, County Supervisor. My name is Ms. Rosemary Wade. I'm a resident of Matheny's Tracks. I'm here to support the approval of the sewer project. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to offer public comment on this item? Yes, sir. Come on down and state your name.
Well, my name is Leonard Oakins, and I live in Matheny Track. I've been out there all my life. I'm 68 years old, and I remember years ago when we used to have an outhouse and stuff like that, and then we moved on up to a septic tank, and then next thing you know, there's a chance to get hooked up to a sewer. And so, please, out of 68 years, can I please have a sewer hookup? Well, that's all, just simple as that, right? Just that simple.
Good point. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else like to offer public comments?
Actually, just a brief reminder. Muy buenas noches al público. En esta noche sí tenemos interpretación simultánea al español disponible por si alguien gusta hacer un comentario en español. Aquí estamos para servirle. Si gustan pasar al podio, este es un buen momento para hacer su comentario público sobre el tema 41 que estamos discutiendo en este momento, sobre la comunidad de Matheny Track.
Said if you need Spanish interpretation, she'll do it.
Yes, just a brief announcement regarding Spanish interpretation.
Sounded much better than what Vanderpool said.
I'm not sure that's what he actually said. All right, anyone else like to offer public comment on this item 41? Okay, seeing none, we will bring it back to the board for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd move for approval.
Yes. Moved by Vanderpool, seconded by Vice Chair McCary. And Madam Clerk, a roll call, please.
Yes. Supervisor Kari?
Aye.
Supervisor Vanderpool?
Aye.
Supervisor Sheklian? Aye. Supervisor Valero?
Aye.
Supervisor Townsend?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to item number 42, and I believe this will be presented, is this being presented by our Chief of Staff? Israel Sotelo Jr., Porterville, born and bred. Welcome back.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board. CAO Britt, I left your copy up on the dais. Would you like mine? It's that time of year again. So with this item, I will be asking you to provide input, direction, and approve any amendments that are made to your legislative platforms. In an effort to stay as brief as possible, I've prepared a short oral presentation. Some of the common changes that were made to both the state and federal platform are simply updated numbers and statistics, properly cited bills so that we can reference them to our state legislative bodies more accurately, shortened preamble, so we really tried to eliminate over-explanation of things that these legislators or executive bodies would already know, and then more concise sentence structure. We also tried to broaden the solutions to encompass more community involvement, more input from our departments when they're advocating on the county's behalf and when you are advocating on the county's behalf. And then rearranged the structure of some of the items to allow for better flow, even combining some of the items so that the ask is a little more concise. We're going to start with the federal platform, and are going to highlight one of the items that was removed because we made pretty significant progress on our ask. The COVID-19 item was removed from our federal platform. The ask was to increase the flexibility of our ARPA funds, and we achieved that at the end of last year through this year's omnibus appropriations bill. That was an effort that was led by our federal lobbyist David Wetmore, contacted us. We sort of inundated our legislators with emails and phone calls, got the ball rolling, and ended up getting that included in the omnibus package. One of the additions to the federal platform is actually a portion there on dry wells. This is on page 7. And we're asking for additional funding for permanent water solutions to water shortage issues, and to raise the per household funding limits to account for current market rates. So the current USDA household water well system program caps out at $11,000 per household, and the average cost in Tulare County to drill a new well is 4 times that amount. And so we felt it was a significant ask to include that in our federal platform this year. Everything else is largely the same. Like I said, updated numbers and statistics are the only other changes. We're going to move forward to our state platform. And some of the items that were removed due to significant or at least minor progress. And as a reminder, these platforms are the result of about 6 months of consultation with the department heads, them having the opportunity to weigh in on their sections, meeting with our state lobbyists, getting edits from our lobbyists in their office, from the CAO's office. This is truly a countywide effort. So 2 of the items that were removed in our state platform have to do with county veteran service officers and what we had labeled as senior nutrition. This is because concerns, and so those asks were completed.
Yeah.
I'm struggling for the word. We also removed a section there on affordable housing and lumped that into the homelessness section so that it reads a little better, and we can highlight the homelessness issue, but also highlight the need for affordable housing and market rate housing at that. And then another one of the items that was removed had to do with programs that were associated with UC Davis shelter medicine program. There was minor progress in this area, and political will has sort of petered out, and the department felt that we had achieved enough to remove that from the platform at this time. 2 items that were removed that we sort of have a watch and wait and see on. The first one is we had an item in there regarding tobacco and the use of e-cigarettes and marketing to minors. SB 793 by Senator Hill of 2020 was upheld by Proposition 31 in the last election, the November ballot. And this ban on flavored tobacco sales actually applied to all what they call ENDS, or electronic nicotine delivery systems, which our ask was specifically directed at. And so we removed that, and we're going to wait and see if this law that was upheld through the ballot initiative system is going to address our concerns long term. Another one of the wait and see items that we removed had to do with the definition of gravely disabled persons in the Latimer-Petra Short Act. Again, there really hasn't been the political will there at the state level to make this redefinition, and with the addition or the new law that implements Care Court, that's sort of directed at catching some of these people who fall through the cracks due to that very poor definition of gravely disabled. We're going to wait and see if Care Court actually addresses that subpopulation. We actually updated one of the solutions on item number 6 in the state platform. We had previously supported funding for a regional administrator to run small water systems, and we've nixed that solution request and shifted to a solution for mandatory consolidation similar to SB 88 of 2015. At the state level and here at the county level, we felt that consolidation is the best way to address some of the issues that these small water systems are having instead of going for that regional administrator approach. We have 3 closely related items. This is item 27, 28, and 29, and they have to do with CalWorks and public guardianship. So item 27, we are advocating for the support of the elimination of considering assets as a condition for CalWorks eligibility. Right now, in order to maintain eligibility under CalWorks, you have to be income and asset poor, but studies have shown that it's precisely increased income and assets that get people off of government subsidized programs, and so we're asking for the elimination of that, the asset test, so that people can, of their own accord, move themselves off of these programs. The second is a CalWorks repeal the 100-hour standard. This is item 28. So the requirements for someone to qualify for CalWorks are not the same for someone to maintain eligibility in CalWorks due to the 100-hour standard. So the 100-hour standard is this idea that a child has to have suffered neglect due to a parent's inability to find work, and they had to have not worked 100 hours in the last 4 weeks. That's the requirement to qualify for CalWorks. But once you are in CalWorks, that standard no longer applies, and so there's this disparity there, and we would like to see that eliminated. The last item there in that section is just support for our public guardian. Increased caseload calls for more funding, and they are incredibly underfunded and short-staffed, and so we want to advocate on their behalf. The big one is item 36, Care Court. Care Court is a new process where this Care Court proposes to deliver community-based behavioral health services and supports, including substance use disorder services to individuals suffering from untreated schizophrenia spectrum and psychotic disorders. So this is sort of that subpopulation that was not being addressed by the LPS Act. So we have a section in there that sort of addresses making sure that the requirements that are passed down from the state are fully funded. And the last item there is item 38. We want to protect Mental Health Service Act funding, MHSA funding. MHSA funds have become sort of the grab bag funding pot for programs or enhancements to other programs that aren't fully funded or need augmentation. And the MHSA funds are distributed or under the control of a local board. And so as you reduce the amount of money in the pot for the local board to dole out and really serve the community, not only are you taking away local control, but you're taking away services from our constituents. And so we really want to protect that funding pot so that it's not picked apart into a million different pieces. So that's my presentation. Again, my asks are, 1, your input. 2 is a little bit more significant ask. I would ask that the platforms be approved and amended on a 2-year basis rather than a 1-year basis to match the legislative calendars of our state and federal governments. It just makes more sense to me that way, and in talking with our state and federal lobbyists, they sort of feel the same way. I would still like the practice to have our departments come to the table each year so that we're up to date on what their needs are, but only amend the platforms every other year. And then approve any amendments that you might have, and select priority issues for our advocacy efforts this year.
Very good. Thanks, Israel. And I'm going to bring it back to the board for questions and comments.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Supervisor Shuckman.
Thumbing through here and listening to you regarding the state platform, earlier we heard from Mr. Herbst and the need for some advocating at the state level for all of our hospitals in Tulare County. Is there anything that would we could put in there that would allow us at times to have it in our platform, so letter writing or whatnot would not always have to come back to the board for approval?
The Medi-Cal reimbursement issue is still a part of our platform as it stands.
Okay.
If that does not suffice, we can look at adding some language.
Yeah, good.
Okay, Supervisor Vanderpool.
So first of all, kudos, Israel. This was your first presentation as chief of staff, and so that's why he's asking for it to be postponed till 2 years from now. So good thinking, but you survived. Great job. I just want to point out for members of the audience who are in attendance, this may seem like we're covering every possible issue, but what the adoption of this platform allows us to do is to not bring every single item of advocacy to a board meeting for formal approval, but rather have it adopted in our platform. It allows us to take positions on various legislation pieces that come forward from both the federal and state level and advocate and take action on an as-needed basis and not have to go through the difficulty of calendaring and delays. When we need to respond now, we can respond now. So I appreciate how comprehensive this is. I want to thank our departments for really coming to the table with both of these platforms and putting forward all of their issues really that they need help with. You can see between the federal platform and the state, there's a huge difference. Federal platform, 12 pages. State platform, 40 pages. Why is it so significant? Well, the state puts forth over 2,000 bills each year. We've got to have a broad platform so that we can be nimble in our advocacy and make sure that impacts here locally are heard at the state level. So I appreciate what you've put forward. I think it's very comprehensive. I don't specifically ask for any changes. I always think it's important that our platforms contain current and relevant information, and I think you did a great job of updating figures to bring it to a point that we're not talking about information from 2012 and 2013 when it's really irrelevant. So appreciate it, Israel, and I look forward to the advocacy that will be put forward because of this.
Thank you, Supervisor Vanderpool. Supervisor Bolero.
All right. Well, first and foremost, I'd like to thank you for your work on this. Greatly appreciated. What I'm about to share now really didn't become apparent to me until this past weekend, and that is the need to really put a laser-like focus on storm drain improvement projects as well as stormwater management. Given the fact, as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, with Yedem and Seville, the canals being up to the brink, almost falling into homes of our residents, as well as in Sultana, going into the back of people's homes. And then also in terms of Orosi, there's one development there that was completely just flooded and up to the kind of the driveway of homes as well in that neighborhood. So it is stated in the infrastructure at the federal platform, but I think this can go both ways, whether it's the state and the federal. And if you just want to include it under infrastructure, great. But spotlighting this is definitely needed, and especially during kind of drought years where we should be working on things like this before heavy rainfalls like we've seen this past weekend. So just wanted to put a greater spotlight on that issue that I experienced over the weekend.
Thank you, Supervisor Valero. Vice Chair McCarry.
Israel, I'd like to echo my colleagues' comments about a great job you did, and staff as well, all the department heads getting together to put this comprehensive list together. And the one thing that I really would like to focus on, I mean, everything is extremely important, but is item 25, which is the full funding for state mandates. I attended via Zoom with our lobbyist, a legislative update with the 2,000 plus bills that they're putting. What they're trying to do, most of them are circumventing, and they're saying right in the law, no state refund. So they're actually, that's what they're putting the wording in there. So they're actually trying to get around and doing more on us, costing us more, impacting us more, and with their mandates, but not willing to fund it. So that's something that I think we really should look at.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Okay, I had just a couple of quick comments. One, I think the 2-year platform is a great idea, Israel, to sync it with what's going on at the state legislature. So I think that would be good. Also, again, thank you, like everyone else has said, for putting this together. And thank all the departments for their input. And it was significant this year, the input coming from the department heads. There was one item on the state legislative platform, item 43, under broadband for all. We've been advocating pretty heavily for that through RCRC and our own advocacy efforts. The first bullet point, support legislation, comma, state budget appropriation and or possible statewide bond to finance local community technology advancements. I would, and I'll bring it back to the board here, I would like to see us not have the bond under our platform, just to have advocacy and let us be a little more flexible on whether or not to support a bond. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. All right. Just wanted to see if there was a consensus on that. And then the other one, I wanted to add a simple under infrastructure, a simple request at the state level to revise rural road funding formulas to add a consideration for number of miles within a county, because Tulare County, we're road heavy here, and I'd like to see us, instead of only be considered on the funding formula on a per capita basis, to do something like a 75-25% split, 75 per capita, 25% on road miles. If we could have that on our platform, then I think any of us could advocate for it.
I mean, even just keeping it broad, the funding formula for road maintenance in the county.
Yeah,
I mean, just
without even splitting it.
Without
just say,
even
keep it real
any
general.
specific split, because if it falls outside that specific split, then, you know,
That's-
we're gonna have to come to the board.
That's a great
So
point.
just keeping it general. I'd be
So just
supportive of that.
advocacy for a funding formula revision. Everybody good? Okay. Any others that you guys wanted to add or subtract? I know you've had comments, but you good? Okay. Then I'm going to ask for public comments on this item as well. Does the public have any comments on item 42 on our legislative platforms? Okay, seeing that, I'll bring it back to the board, and I guess we'll do it in one motion, both platforms?
Mr. Chair?
Oh, yes.
I just want, for clarification on the hospital's comment, did the board want to add something, or did you feel it was sufficient for the Medi-Cal reimbursement?
I think as far as advocacy goes, that just the Medi-Cal reimbursement is the main thing we can get out of the state.
Okay. Okay. All right, very good. Board, what do you think?
I'd move for approval, Mr. Chair,
Um,
given the revisions that have been made during this conversation.
Moved by Supervisor Vanderpool, seconded by Supervisor Sheklian. And Madam Clerk, if we could have a roll call.
Supervisor McCrory?
Aye.
Supervisor Vanderpool?
Aye.
Supervisor Sheklian?
Aye.
Supervisor Valero?
Aye.
Supervisor Townsend?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Thank you. And with that, are we going to make it, guys? You want to take a quick break? You're good? Good? Okay. All right. We're going to go to item number.
Past my bedtime. Come
I
on,
know,
we're good.
I know. That's what I was thinking.
Wait a minute, I might want to take a break now. All right,
Do you? No?
I'm good.
You're good? Good?
Wait, no, yes, I do. 5 minutes.
Okay. 5-minute break, and let's come back at 8 o'clock.
needs one.
Just for the cause.
I got you, Mel.
Oh, we don't have to break stuff.
Thanks. My mouth is like.
Did you get my mask? I missed the timing.
Yeah, it's been working
30
great.
issues
So,
with funded mandates.
to the hotspot. I don't know why we didn't get Wi-Fi. But what's weird is that everybody else's cellular networks is working. Mine's not. So I don't know why that. I have it on, so it's not like I have it turned off. I don't know what the deal is. So I was looking at. So
So yours is not activated.
Oh.
1 minute warning. 1 minute warning. If the vice chair and Supervisor Shuckling could return to the dais, please. That was a minute ago. Elmo. They're going to throw you out of here. Security. Vice Chair McCarry, you have 5 seconds. 4 seconds.
I'm going to need more than that. Supervisor McCarry, please report to the dais.
We almost called an escort to get you back up here. All right. Thank you for enduring that little break for our benefit. And we're on the last item, item number 43. I'm going to ask our Chief of Staff to introduce the item.
All right. This item is for a legislative prayer program to open each Board of Supervisors meetings. So the legislative prayer program would open each Board of Supervisors meetings with either a prayer and a flag salute or a flag salute and a moment of silence. The leading of the flag salute would rotate among the 5 supervisors by district. The prayer or moment of silence would also rotate among the 5 supervisors by district in accordance with one of the 3 following options. Option A is 1, the supervisor can ask for a moment of silence, 2, pray, or 3, ask another supervisor to pray. Option B, the designated supervisor may 1, ask for a moment of silence, 2, pray, 3, ask another supervisor to pray, or 4, select an individual/organization from an approved wait list to pray. If the selected individual/organization is not present to pray, the deciding supervisor may A, ask for a moment of silence, B, pray, or C, ask another supervisor to pray. And the final option is option C. The designated supervisor may select an organization or individual from an approved wait list. If the selected individual/organization is not present to pray, a moment of silence will be observed.
Thank you, Israel. And I'm going to just immediately come back to the supervisors for discussion on this item. Supervisor Vanderpool.
Mr. Chair, have we received any public comment on this item?
Well, we'll do that after we have any comment for Israel or any questions.
I'll ask our clerk, have we received any correspondence for public comment? Because sometimes we do via email or
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that's what you meant. Yeah, okay.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Chair, we did receive 4 emails, and just for record, 3 of those were in opposition and 1 was a general comment. And at this time, I would like to pass them out to all of the board members.
Thank you.
And in addition, if anybody from the public would like to see, I also have copies here as well.
Okay, thank you. And while they're passing those out, do we have any other questions, comments for Israel before we go to the public for comments? Wait. Okay, hearing none. Okay, we're taking a look at these comments that were received. I guess must have been pretty recently, today or yesterday. Okay. Now we will have public comments. These will be limited to 3 minutes each for public comments. If you could state your name for the record before making the comment.
Distinguished supervisors, my name is Ryan Ruckman. In God's word, we are instructed to pray and seek the Lord while he may be found, and to call upon him while he is near, to let the wicked man forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts, and let him turn to the Lord, who will abundantly pardon all those who seek forgiveness from him, the repentance of sin, and faith in our Lord Jesus Christ, because God loves us and God loves Tulare County. It is he alone who established just government to protect the righteous and to punish the wicked. It is he who established just law and order for the governance of man. His word, the Bible, is the very book upon which the U.S. Constitution is based, and rightly so. For no just government authority exists outside of Christ's will, and certainly no local government can be successful without seeking him in prayer. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, if you could state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Hall. I am a retired pediatrician, and I've lived in Lindsay for more than 44 years. I'm here to speak against the proposal to establish prayer as part of the Board of Supervisors meetings. I've belonged to my congregation for the past 41 years. I've taught religious school for years. I've been the librarian for my congregation for decades. I'm also involved in a couple of 501c3 nonprofits. I'm not opposed to prayer, and I only force it on people when I'm teaching religious school. But I do oppose government-sponsored prayer, and my opposition is based on the Bill of Rights and subsequent Supreme Court rulings on establishment of religion. The First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. In 1971, the court established a three-pronged test for laws dealing with religious establishment. To be constitutional, a statute must have a secular legislative purpose. It must have principal effects that neither advance nor inhibit religion, and it must not foster an excessive government entanglement with religion. There is no secular purpose of prayer at a governmental meeting. It advances religions that proselytize in public prayer, and it entangles the government with religion. In 1989, a group of justices developed a coercion test. The government does not violate the Establishment Clause unless it provides direct aid to religion in a way that would tend to establish a state church or involve citizens in religion against their will. Prayer at a Board of Supervisors meeting provides direct aid to religion by publicizing certain denominations, and it would involve citizens in religion against their will. We have a very diverse population in Tulare County, including the religious persuasions. But there's only one mosque and one synagogue in Tulare County, and there are no Hindu temples here. Many religions would not be represented, especially if the prayer is led by the supervisors. And many might be afraid. I'm sure the supervisors would be happy to invite others to come up and lead prayers, but the growing wave of anti-Muslim, anti-Semitic, and anti-Asian violence in this country means that many people would not want to be obvious that way. Please don't go down this path. We all have the opportunity to practice our religion without involving fellow citizens in it against their will.
Thank you for your comments. You have others? Yes, state your name for the record.
Good evening, and thank you for serving. My name is Bob Ruckman, and I would draw your attention first to what it says, "In God we trust," above the plaque. Our money says, "In God we trust." God is the creator of all living, in my opinion, and I would pray that it would be yours, since you have taken upon yourselves the most difficult task of leading our communities. It would seem prudent that you would begin every meeting by asking God to give you the wisdom to oversee the people of God. And that's not proclaiming one religion above another. It's calling for the Creator asking God for His wisdom and His understanding. You guys have, just listening to what was taking place this evening with what's going on with Kauai Hospital and the other hospitals, with flooding, with the turmoil we have in our communities and our schools. Your responsibility is astronomical, and I can't even imagine how you could do it without beginning a meeting that's dealing with the lives of the people you are serving and asking God for His wisdom and understanding, that you might have that you can quote and answer questions from His perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I have Jimmy Mello. Jimmy Mello.
Do you have a few cards?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you.
My name is Jimmy Malloy. I reside with my family in Tulare, but we felt like this was a worthy enough thing to drive out to Porterville to address. I want to thank you, Chairman Townsend, for your leadership, and my hope and prayer on this issue is that that leadership that can come from this Board of Supervisors would spread to other council chambers and boardrooms all across the county, and then some. Tulare County is a county with strong faith community. My brother referenced the In God We Trust that sits right above you guys right now. There's a rich history there. And I too, as I sit here and I listen to the things about Kauai Delta, or Kauai Health, excuse me, the various things that you guys are dealing with, the edicts and the things that come down from Sacramento, the ways that they're tying your hands and then asking you to figure out how to do these things. I can't imagine how you navigate those waters without some sort of, it's not only going to take human reasoning, but it's going to take divine wisdom and divine leadership in order to figure out how to meet the challenges right now. We know that this proposal would also provide an opportunity for local faith leaders to partner with and participate in the business of the county. These are relationships that are critical to many of the programs that are run by the county, and this proposal here would only strengthen those relationships. I would have two questions about this proposal, though. Number one, there is a comment, or there's language in there about an approved wait list. My question would be, what would the process be and the requirement be to get on this approved wait list? Second question would be, what does it mean that the designated supervisor will select someone to pray? Are you selecting from a list? Is it a rotating list? Like, what would that look like? In the end, I just want to thank, again, the leadership for taking the lead on this sort of issue. I would ask you to pass it. I'd prefer option B or C, personally, is my 2 cents. But thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
I have
Just-
Mr. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I was just going to take the opportunity, just to, because sometimes things are posed as a question to the board, and we won't typically respond on the public comments, but we'll probably try to get back and address some of those as we discuss the item. So we're not trying to be rude if we don't just answer right away, but that's how the public comment works. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ed McCurby.
Good evening. My name's Ed McCurvey. I reside here in Porterville. I'm going to start with the California Constitution Preamble. And it says, "We the people of the state of California, grateful to Almighty God for our freedom, in order to secure and perpetuate its blessings, do establish this Constitution." The Declaration of Independence, penned by Thomas Jefferson, mentions God 4 times as our creator. We are all created equal. It is nature and nature's God that He created all things in the universe. It is divine providence, as mentioned in the Declaration of Independence, our founding document, and it basically says faith, providence, divine providence. We can't see ahead what is happening, so we must have faith, but we can see in the rearview mirror, and it informs our direction. And of course, the fourth mention of God in the Declaration of Independence is the supreme judge of the world. That's accountability for each one of us, no matter what our role is in this country, in the world. The supreme judge of the world is over all. It's about accountability. The cornerstone of our republic is the Declaration of Independence, just as the cornerstone of the church is Jesus Christ. When Thomas Jefferson wrote to the Danbury Baptists about the separation of church and state, it's been taken out of context for many, many years. It was to separate the garden from the wilderness, not the wilderness from the garden, because we were under usurpation of the Church of England. We are no longer. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land, instituted among men to protect the God-given rights. We take an oath as elected officials to both that Constitution in the federal level and on the state level. And you can hear from the preamble that we thank God. And I would say, if Thomas Jefferson was a Catholic, he would be a saint. It's really important to understand that as a founding document, but the founding idea that we are all created equal. The virtues of our people and our nation are found in the good book. How we understand what right and wrong is, the very ethics of right and wrong, comes from the Judeo-Christian ethic. Prayer invokes the spirit of meekness that connects us to all that is good, right, and just, so that we may stand against all that is evil, failed, and wrong. Prayer keeps us grounded and humble and on track towards freedom, peace, and prosperity. Invoking prayer keeps us humble, keeps us focused. Philippians 4:8. Whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, think on these things. It says, in God we trust, not in man we trust, not in machines, not in staff, not in money, not in Supreme Court even. It says, in God we trust. Proverbs 3:5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Madam Clerk?
Josh Flowers.
Whoop. We'll go through the list, and then if there's anyone that wasn't on didn't have a card, we'll call for additional as well.
Good evening. My name is Josh Flowers. I'm going to talk to you about patriotism. Patriotism, it was predicted in the year 2024 a woman would be elected president of the United States. So the reporters immediately ran and rushed to the husband to ask him how he felt about the election. And he said his only regret is he only has one wife to give to his country. Now that's patriotism. Now today, we have brought forward to the debate of bringing back invocation back to the county council meetings. It's unfortunate that we even have to have this debate, if you will, but Jefferson founded our democracy on two principles. One, dignity of man, and secondly, to simplify it, all rights and liberties come to us from God. Now, proof of this can be found through our founding documents. God was mentioned 4 times throughout the Declaration of Independence. It's found in our Pledge of Allegiance, and it's even in the California Preamble. But why should non-religious people, love the Bible? Here's the truth. I don't go to church. However, I still think the Bible is one of the greatest pieces of literature ever written. The reason I think this is because the Bible is the backbone to all of Western civilization. No moral values that you hold would exist without the Bible. Case in point, look at Harvey Weinstein, a guy who sexually assaults women in order to get what he wanted. In modern day society, this view is reprehensible, and rightly so. Because viewing it as reprehensible protects the powerless and it protects women. However, in ancient Rome, if you were part of the wealthy class, you would be expected to treat women in this way, because the value systems in Rome was set up in a way that valued strength over morality. You are a product of a moral system that you were born into. So I started with the word patriotism. If you take that word back to its Latin roots, it would be pronounced pietas, which means love of God, love a neighbor, and love a country. And when one goes out, all goes out. So if we no longer have love of God, we no longer have love of country. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Madam Clerk, we have other cards?
That's all the cards that I have, so if anybody else would like to speak.
Okay, go forward. State your name, please, before your comments.
Hello, my name is David Harris, and I'm a local businessman here in Porterville, and I live in Springville, but I'm in Porterville most of the time. I think that you guys have an excellent opportunity here to adopt something that we need back in this county. We need God back in our county, in our schools, in our government. I can't tell you what God said in my life. I'd only like to say that if you guys don't know God, you're missing out big time. And you have an opportunity right now to make a decision that'll change the course of history in our country, and starting right here in our county. And we need it. All I heard tonight was problems, problems, problems. My solution is praying. That's how I take it at prayer at home. But publicly, I don't see it as a problem. It says in the Bible, Jesus calls us to pray. We pray for our needs. We pray for prosperity. And right now, I see a lot of problems with our hospitals and not a real answer to it. Jesus has the answer. He has the wisdom. We don't. Man doesn't. We've been doing it wrong for a long time. You can see it in our school systems, how they're eroding. You can see it in the government. You can see it in the state of California, people leaving. I've lived here all my life, and I'd like to see a change here rather than leave, but a lot of people choose to leave. But you right now have a choice to make, and one day we're all going to be we'll be facing God one day, and He'll ask you, what have you done? If you denied Him tonight, you'll have to live with this decision the rest of your life. So I strongly urge you to really think about what you're going to do and pray about it and give it a chance and see a change in this county. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Others? Yes, if you just state your name for the record, please.
Jim Reeves from Visalia. I urge the supervisors not to pass this. I don't see a need for it. The moment of silence seems to cover everybody's religious theocracy or theology just fine. For everybody citing scripture about praying, I would remind them of Matthew chapter 6, verses 5 and 6. It basically talks about this, praying in public. I have no problem with any of you if you feel that you need divine intervention or divine guidance. I would suggest that you do your praying at home before the meeting, like Matthew talks about. I don't see any need to impose it on everybody else. There are a lot of people in this county that have no religious background or belief, and they are full citizens in this county as everybody else is. How do you respect their religious non-belief by getting up and giving what will almost always certainly be a Christian prayer? How do you recognize the Jewish community that doesn't see Christ as the Savior? I have a fully legal ordination in 4 different faith organizations. Am I going to be able to sign up and give an invocation as a high priest of the Temple of Earth or as a minister of the Church of the Latter-day Dude? Is that going to be something that's going to be available? Because if you're going to have a wait list, you're going to have it open to everybody. And at some point, somebody from the Church of Satan may decide they want to give an invocation. I think it's a can of worms that you really don't need. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We have anyone else who would like to speak?
I've had Reina Rodriguez, local Tulare County resident. I've had the honor of participating at many board meetings where prayer has been a part of the opening session of the meetings, and people of all denominations, of all religions, of all backgrounds have stood up and have given that respect, and I have seen beautiful things happen. I've known of a few council meetings that I feel that prayer has really aligned everybody who is in a decision-making position to really reconsider their thoughts or their words or their expressions towards one another, thanks to that reminder that, you know, we are there to be in a respectful manner, and I think it really creates great consensus amongst teams. At least that's what I've seen. I would love to just definitely have some considerations, maybe requesting the prayer to be written ahead of time to perhaps avoid some situations that could be difficult, or just really setting parameters as to this is the allowable. I did see a circumstance that wasn't as positive, and it was still respected. The prayer was allowed to continue, but I did participate in a situation where I don't think it went well. So maybe really taking guidance and thinking, you know, how do we best prepare? I'm very sure that everyone will vet and have good relationship with whoever is going to offer a prayer. I would love to have a good opportunity to really be non-denominational when it comes to who comes and offers prayer, just to really have that opportunity to bring the community together in its truest form. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Rena. Others, yes, sir. State your name.
My name is Randy Goings. I've lived here all my life. And as I sat here for the last 2.5 hours, I was amazed at everything you guys have to deal with. And I want you to know that I pray for you guys every single day. I pray that God will give you the wisdom to know how to deal with what you deal with. You know, it's amazing. And I'm sure it's a heavy burden on you sometimes. You know, seeing all these things that, man, how do you deal with them all? Well, you know, I pray that you'll have wisdom. In James 1:5, it says, if any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him. And I think it would be beneficial for us, before we start, to ask our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, to ask our God and Father to give us wisdom before we start a meeting and in your daily lives. And I will continue to pray for each and every one of you every day, as I do for our president, our vice president, the Congress, the Senate, because you guys have a tremendous responsibility, and I thank you for your service.
Thank you. If you could state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Corey Wells. Thanks for having me, and thanks for coming to Porterville. Just before I talk about this item, I wanted to express thank you for coming to Porterville, making it accessible to come to these meetings. I watch on YouTube, and this is a huge county compared to many counties across America, so it's a little difficult driving all those miles to go to these meetings. So on this item, I think it is pretty great that this is being considered, and I want to talk about this in kind of a different approach. This is certainly a topic that is met with a lot of hostility to pretty much all things religious in public life. And so there's plenty of case law that supports legislative prayer as a constitutional practice. I'm not going to list all of them, but I would certainly implore, if you need to, consult with your legal team to look at these cases. There's one in 1983, 2013, 2014, 2019, 2021, 2017. There's a lot of them. And a lot of these came from the Ninth Circuit, Sixth Circuit, and SCOTUS, plenty of opinions on this. I would say that this should pass. I would also, I believe that option B is the best option. The only thing about that is that I would wonder what is that wait list criteria to be on that. There is case law that does relate to that. The one from 2013, Rubin versus Lancaster from here in California, upheld the constitutionality of Lancaster, the practice of opening meetings with a prayer delivered by council members or members of the public. And there's another one that talks about how in 2014, Town of Greece versus Galloway in SCOTUS, they held that meetings with prayer delivered by a local volunteer clergy member did not violate the Establishment Clause. So I think that it is the one thing I would say that is definitely stray away from is to be careful when compelling languages in the invocation. But other than that, I think it is awesome that you're wanting to expand the moment of silence to more than that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any other members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Yes, sir. If you could just state your name for the record.
Yes, my name's Steve Flowers. I was born in Porterville back in '54. And I remember going to school here. I remember saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I remember having prayer. I don't remember anybody being shot. Our country, not only Porterville, but the whole country, when they took God out of almost everything, it has gone to hell. I appreciate you trying to put it back in. I hope you do. If we don't put it back in and we don't turn things around, God help all of us, because it didn't used to be this way. And I know I'm talking way, way back for most of you guys, but God got me through 4 years in the infantry, and people died in my place, and I'm here. I started a business. I worked it for 30 years. I prayed to God before I bought it that he would get me through it. And the banker told me before I got rid of it that I was in the top 4% of all companies in the world. I did very well. But I did it with God. I really, really believe that there's a movement going on right now. If you've seen the news at all, there's a movement going on in the United States. I'm very happy about it, because I thought all colleges have gone to hell already. But in what I've been seeing lately is there's a God movement spreading through all the universities, and a lot of kids are coming to God right now. I guess the biggest one was in Kentucky. It was supposed to be a 2-hour thing, and it ended up going for 2 or 3 weeks. Thousands and thousands of people from all over went there just to see what it was about. Holy Spirit moves. And if you ask the Holy Spirit to go in you and help you, that's what he does. When you ignore it, you're just another piece of flesh trying to make your own decisions, which are usually bad for all of us. So I do appreciate you bringing it. It's a start. If somebody starts something, sometimes the ball gets rolling, and maybe it'll end up in schools, and we won't have all these shootings in schools anymore. So appreciate you bringing it forward. Thanks.
Thanks for your comments. Do we have any other members of the public wishing to speak? Yes, sir. If you can just state your name for us when you go up. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'll just take 3 minutes if you don't mind. Thank you for what you're doing. I appreciate you looking over the county that I was born in, formerly of Dinuba. Now Porterville's my hometown. One nation under God. Nobody takes exception to that until they need him. Until there's a miracle that's needed. Buffalo Bills, Damar Hamlin, ESPN, public television, paid for television across the board, and the guy's life was saved. So there's no atheists in foxholes until tragedy strikes. I don't know why we would wait. Why would we wait and dismiss the glue that holds this country together? And if that bothers folks, it makes no common sense that it would. In God we trust. I stood right here with Porterville City Council sitting right there and delivered an invocation. Just a prayer of wisdom for them. That's all. No theological backlash, nothing like that. Okay? It's about peace. And yes, Jesus did say, pray in your closet. Why did he say that? So you would be prepared in public to go out and spread the gospel and the good news of which we're lacking with human wisdom. Okay? No amount of education creates spiritual nourishment. And from my position, I work at the Visalia Rescue Mission. I got to Porterville Christmas Day 2010 living out of the back seat of a 1995 Ford Taurus. And I'm telling you, I'm standing here today and I get to help people out of the mess that I was in through prayer and spiritual development and nourishment every day who are in the pits of darkness. And we want solutions, we want problems solved, but we don't want to go to the source of all goodness to go get it. And if human wisdom could do it, this country would have been done for a long time ago. We would have been over as a country. Prayer is what holds this country, this state, this county, and the city together. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any others in the public wishing to speak? Going once, going twice. Okay, thank you very much for all of your input. We really appreciate that. And with that, we're going to bring it back. Let me just quickly. There was a couple of questions that were asked, and as I mentioned, we don't typically interrupt to answer that. But something that was asked a couple of times was the wait list. That's something that would be considered on another agenda item if we were to choose option B or C this evening. And then what has been posited is having just an open invitation to the wait list and having just a few guidelines. No fire, no poisonous snakes, things like that in the chambers. Anyway, things like that we just very simple, maybe a time limit, like similar to public comments, to try to keep, just make it very open to anyone that would like to, individuals or organizations, not specific to any particular denomination or faith even, just an open invitation that we would choose from. And then there was a question about the rotation. It's very similar to what we're doing right now. We typically rotate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the flag salute, and then we have the moment of silence together. But each of the supervisors take turns in leading the Pledge of Allegiance. So it'd be very similar to that, where we just go. We'd be very strict about it then, because then that supervisor who was designated for that night would either, depending on which option we chose, would be the one directing those options. So it would be divided between the 5 districts. Okay, any other comments from the board, questions, discussion? Yes, Supervisor Vanderpool.
I have nothing to say. I have no thoughts. You've seen different agenda items, and obviously I'm very opinionated in making comments very freely about what I feel and what I think. So I've been on the board for 15 years, and I can tell you that not a single moment of silence has ever gone by where I have not prayed during my moment of silence. So it is up to the individual how they choose to handle that moment of silence And I have chosen to utilize my moment of silence to pray in the silence of my heart. I'm a very religious person. People practice religion in different ways. Some people wear it on their sleeves. Some people proclaim it in absolutely everything they do. I believe, I go to church on a regular basis. I even pay to send my kids to school so that God is a part of their education. That is very important to me because the values that should be being taught to our children should be values similar to what I want them being taught in home, and that is absolutely with a religious bent to what they are learning. And I will tell you that that is definitely one of my children's favorite pieces of their schooling is the amount of religion that they do learn when they do attend school. So that is very special, near and dear to my heart. I believe in the power of prayer. I believe I'm the result of the power of prayer. I've had many life experiences that I have no reason to believe there's any way I would be here if it weren't for prayer, if it weren't for the power of God. So I'm absolutely a believer. But I'm also very conscious of the role that we have as a county board of supervisors, as a government. I'm aware of the separation of church and state. I also believe that God needs to be in our lives in more than what he has been proclaimed in recent history. And I think that's a real reason why we're seeing the problems that we're seeing in our society. I do think that if we are going to go down this road and to change the way that the board does things and the way that I've done things for 15 years, and that's use my moment of silence to pray, I believe that there has to be structure with this. I think that members of the public are due that when they come to a board meeting. They don't come to a board meeting to pray. They choose to go to a church on a Sunday or a Saturday, whatever day it is, to pray. So if there is going to be a change from a moment of silence, which I have used for prayer, it needs to have a very specific structure to that. I believe that option C of the list here is probably the closest thing to a level of structure that I think could be acceptable. I think that the prayer list should be established in the January of each year. Let's say our legislative calendar has 40 meetings. There are 40 slots that people can sign up for that slot to pray. I believe that there has to be guidelines along with the prayer. But I also believe that if someone from the Church of Satan wants to come and pray, they're a member of the public. And we are a very, very diverse county. So I believe that any prayer list should be reflective of that county and should not be limited to any particular supervisor's desires as to who should pray. So allow the prayer. We have to be open to what the public is willing to submit for us to listen to. And so I do think there has to be a guideline to that. I think that it should not be led by individual supervisors. I don't believe that you should have an option to either pray or have a moment of silence. It's too wishy-washy. I think that what it should be is either stick with the way that it has been, the status quo, where you pray during the moment of silence or observe the moment of silence however you would like. Or if we are going to go forward and specifically sanction prayer during a Board of Supervisors meeting as an agenda item, I believe it has to be structured as I've outlined.
Thank you, Supervisor Vanderpool. You know, for somebody that doesn't have any thoughts on the matter, you have quite a few thoughts on the matter. Any other supervisors? Yes, Supervisor Sheklian. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to say I served for 9 years on the Visalia City Council where we had prayer, and probably in that nine years there might have been once, maybe twice, where there was a prayer that was non-Christian. I think it was a local rabbi. I was baptized and raised in a Christian church, the Armenian church. My great-grandparents were massacred because of their Christian beliefs. Armenia was the first nation to accept Christianity. But I've also been praised for what the Board of Supervisors does as far as offering the moment of silence. I know when I'm in that moment of silence, it's a time for me to pray or meditate or reflect on what's coming before us, and asking for myself to have, the strength and the wisdom to make the right decisions. And therefore, I think it is worked well. I've had folks, again, when I was on the city council, who were not of Christian faith, who were of the Jewish faith, and said, I feel very uncomfortable. It's a staff person. They have to be at that meeting. And when the prayer ends with, in Jesus Christ's name I pray, they said, yes, I do feel uncomfortable with that. And so it is, what comforts me may not comfort others. And I represent people from all faiths and religions. And I feel that when you come into the chambers, the board chambers, you should not feel uncomfortable. And therefore, that's why I will continue to support a moment of silence.
Thank you, Supervisor
Thank you.
Shucklian. Other thoughts? Okay. Supervisor Valero.
Hello. All right. I don't know, Melinda, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that I'm probably the first to have my pastor swear me in during my 2019 oath of office. So for me, and my faith is very strong to me in terms of being a member of Christian Worship Center out in Cutler and Dinuba. And so for me, my faith has always been important. I too take the moment of silence as a time for me to reflect, to pray for guidance and direction, for the ability to make the sound decisions that I need to make on the dais. And I will also just share, it was late one night back in 2013 when I only had a chapter left in my dissertation. And I was going to go off to Texas and teach in Texas and not ever look back at California, even though I grew up in Orosi. But on the treadmill one night in Planet Fitness, Ithaca, New York Mall, I prayed and God said, you know what, Eddie, go back home. It's your time to go back home and do the good work that needs to get done. You've always focused on yourself, but now it's focused on community. And so for me, I have seen cities and counties where this does work in terms of the invocations that I either see online when I look at a city council meeting in Fresno via the streaming, and it always opens with that moment of encouragement, that moment of prayer, and hence why I really enjoyed what Raina had to say on the matter in terms of non-denominational, but people just being able to come in and really have that. If we go down the route of moment of silence, I'm okay with that. But if we go with the option that has been presented to us tonight, I do feel that we should move with option C.
I pray when I'm on the treadmill too, Eddie. A lot.
I pray for you when you're on the treadmill too.
I thought you said you were religious, Amy.
Vice Chair McCary.
Well, Chairman Townsend, we've had discussions, and I've seen it at other council meetings. It's here, in God we trust above us. I grew up going to a parochial school. Throughout my law enforcement career, rolling to them crazy calls, and you hear somebody screaming on the background, and I'm praying on the way that we all leave there safe. And Jim, you're a dispatcher, you know what I'm talking about. And my only concern is that I represent everybody. And if we do this, this needs to be done in a manner that we serve everybody, that anyone's allowed to come in. And I've been to calls, I'm going to tell you right now, I've been to seances where they're summoning the devil. I've been to calls where they're praying and they got a doll as a dead child there that they've hung or they've cut its head off. I've been to these calls. And if you don't think those people will come for a platform in our meeting, you're mistaken, because they want a platform. Now, with that said, we have to leave it for everybody. And so what my fear is it becomes a circus. It becomes a circus that these people are going to come and they're going to inflame everybody, and then we're going to have to go back and forth. What we have to do is understand and respect everybody. I don't agree with that stuff by any means. I guarantee you that. But they are here. They've been here. There's a Baptist group that shows up every time a police officer is murdered, and they mock the family, and they go through and they espouse hate, and they come through. So we need to understand that if it's this manner, it's going to be all for one, and you're going to hear some ugly things, maybe. And then we'll also hear a lot of good things too, though. I understand that part. But I just want everyone to understand, because I represent everyone. I think that if we do this, I don't want to have to choose anyone to pray, because I don't feel that I have that honor to do that. I think what we should have is a list, and like Supervisor Vanderpool said, we have 40 meetings, there's 40 slots. You can go online, you can register for it, and you can come to pray. And if you're not there at the time or the meeting, then at that point, then we could either choose a moment of silence or one of the supervisors choose to pray. But I think it needs to be more structured, it needs to be open, it needs to be fair. There's a lot of case law on this, a lot of case law. And part of our duties are that we're to be fiscally responsible for the county. And if we're just hapless about it and we start getting sued and we start having to defend ourselves, even though we're right, we get sued all the time because they see us as having big, deep pockets. And we have to be aware of that. So I'm not against prayer. I mean, I see this behind us. I've been everywhere. I've prayed. I've used my moment of silence as praying. I just don't feel that I have I shouldn't push my beliefs and prayer on you, is the way I feel. Now, if we're going to have it open and everybody understands that we may hear some things we don't agree with, then we just need to have that understanding. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So yeah, thank everybody. Thank you all for the comments, the input. It's been said several times up here. I mean, I heard a lot of support for the possibility of doing option C, which is the wait list. Which, if we approve that, we would need to figure out exactly how to do it. But the idea would be to make it an open list with just those parameters out there that were pretty much safety and obscenity, that type of thing within a chambers, and then have that be rotated or have a supervisor select from that list. That would be the option C. And if somebody didn't show up, then there would be a moment of silence as usual. Option B is very similar to that, except for it gives the supervisors in a rotational basis the opportunity to either pray, have a moment of silence, or select someone from the list who they would contact ahead of time saying, you're next on the list, and go ahead and have the prayer. So I'm the one that brought this forward. I brought it forward because this country was founded on prayer. When the Constitution was being written, there were heavy conversations. There was lots of dissension. They finally got together and prayed, and they came up. They finalized the Constitution. Virtually all of our founding fathers have advocated that if we just forget God, if we just leave God out, if we don't acknowledge Him, that we can't have the free society that we have. And the reason for that is that if we don't have that higher authority, it comes down to us. And each one of us, as great as these five are, we're all imperfect, and we're not really eligible to govern without that additional authority. And so to ask for, when we stand up, we pledge allegiance to the flag. That flag represents the United States of America, the nation that's founded under God. We even say under God in there. As it's been mentioned, it's on our money. So we acknowledge it, but then we turn around and we have this real hang-up, or real fear about then acknowledging God in a prayer, because prayer is just talking to God, saying, Lord, thank you, for this group. Thank you for this meeting. Guide us in your decisions and guide us as we direct the county. Seems pretty simple. I've sat through very, very many prayers that from other denominations, certainly. I do a lot of interdenominational things, but also prayers of other faiths, which I've sat through respectfully. I didn't have to agree with who they were praying to. I didn't have to agree with the tenets of the prayer, but I can sit through it respectfully. I mean, come on, a couple of minutes through a prayer. Tonight we listened to lots of public comments that went for 3 minutes each. I mean, I'm not offended by anybody agree or disagree with me. It doesn't bother me. I think we're big enough to be able to handle this. And so really, it would just be adding to that acknowledgement of God, whether I would really like to see us be able to have the opportunity for it to rotate, where each of the supervisors first could decide, do we go to the list, do they say a prayer, or do they have a moment of silence? And but I'm also okay with either of the other options that have been mentioned. So at this point, we've all commented, we've heard from the public, and so I'll bring it back for a motion.
I'd like to go to closed session.
You want to go to closed session?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do have this agendized for closed session under item A.
Okay, and do we have a space available?
Yes, we do.
We do. Okay. Okay, if you'll excuse us for a bit, we need to go into closed session, and we will come back out just as soon as we have the discussion.
And there will not be any announcement out.
No.
That way?
Okay, we're going to come back together. Okay, we had some questions and clarifications back in closed session, and so now I'm going to bring it back to the board again, looking for a motion.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we proceed, but I'd like it to be item D. Actually, it's an option D in there, to where it will be have staff put together where we have just a generic list. If we have X amount of meetings that year, there's going to be that many slots. And then first come, first serve. If your name's on there, you need to be at that board meeting at that time and for the invocation. And it's going to be open to everybody. Doesn't matter who, doesn't matter what their belief is, it's open to everybody. And so if staff could put that plan together and bring it back to us for approval.
And I'd say real quickly that you having said that now, it really is option C, and you just explained how we would do the wait list on option C, making an open wait list that staff is in control of.
So it would not have to be anybody from an ordained minister, priest, pastor. It would not have to be. It could be anybody. They don't have to have any affiliation with a particular church or religion or any kind of ordination. Is that what you're saying?
That was the idea behind Vice Chair's motion, I believe.
Yes, open to anybody.
Open advertisement that staff would handle a sign up for throughout the year. And then some parameters would be brought back to us at a later date.
It sounds like maybe it's option C with the rewording to say, instead of select an individual from an approved wait list, to say recognize the preceding individual on the wait list.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Individual selection by the supervisor.
Yeah, instead of the supervisor selecting, you just go through the lineup on the approved wait list. Yeah.
A sign-up list.
Yeah. Okay, so is that motion understood by everybody? Okay, if so, do I have a second on that motion?
So I will second that motion in terms of drafting a proposal from staff to then bring that forward for further consideration.
Okay, very good. So we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll.
Supervisor Makari?
Aye.
Supervisor Vanderpool?
Aye.
Supervisor Shuklian?
Nay.
Supervisor Valero?
Aye.
Supervisor Townsend?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
All right. Thank you very much for going through that. We have a real quick last. We have a board matter request. Any of the board can request an item for a future agenda. Do we have any such requests from the board members? All right. Hearing none, and we have no further need for closed session.
No, Mr. Chair, there is no further need for closed session.
Okay, hearing that, then we will adjourn. Thank you all for coming and for sitting through a fairly long meeting tonight. Thank you.